On New Year's Day 2019, TJ Dillashaw was on top of the MMA world, or at least very close to it. He was widely regarded as one of the 10 best, if not 5 best, pound for pound fighters in the sport. And as he prepared to drop to flyweight and try to add the bantamweight belt, he had the potential to enter the discussion as the best fighter in the sport, period. The next 3 months would see him experience one of the quickest and most drastic falls from grace of any top level fighter in recent memory. On January 19th, 2019, he faced flyweight champ Henry Cejudo at UFC Fight Night 143 and suffered a shocking knockout loss in 32 seconds. A few months later, in March, the news came out that he had tested positive for banned performance enhancer EPO, drawing a 2-year suspension from USADA. He had gone from one of the top fighters in the sport to an example of tragic hubris and arrogance and overreach gone wrong to a PED cautionary tale, all in the space of 3 months. He was eligible to fight once again in January of 2021. For various reasons, that return to the octagon was delayed and put off. It finally takes place this Saturday, and the road to redemption, or not, lies ahead. Welcome to the Sherdog Radio Network preview for UFC on ESPN 27, Sandhagen versus Dillashaw. I'm your host, Ben Duffy of Sherdog.com. With me, as usual, is Keith Schillen. Keith is the executive producer of the Sherdog Radio Network, where he is the creator of numerous shows, including Getting Too Personal, MMA Legacy, and, of course, the Schillen and Duffy Show, where he hosts our weekly recaps. Keith, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm excited. It's funny, your build-up, is all about TJ Dillashaw, and it got me excited for this card. I'm excited for TJ to return. I'm excited to see where he stands, and I'm actually even more excited to see Cory Sandhagen if he's ready to take that. He's already made a huge step up, showing that he's upper echelon bantamweight. But is he ready to be the face of the division? By taking out the former champion. I'm excited.
I'm glad you said that, and I think we'll probably get to this more later when we actually get to talking about the main event. But I feel bad that he's almost a forgotten man in all this. We're talking about a guy who he's the favorite, he's the headliner, but the last time we saw Dillashaw in the cage, I mean, Sandhagen wasn't even on the radar. I mean, he was in the UFC, but he wasn't on the radar as a top 5 guy at that point. And yeah, he's sort of a forgotten man in all this buildup. You watch the UFC's, their promo, their hype reels for this, their previews. It's all about Dillashaw's redemption. And again, we'll talk about this later, but the way the UFC's been portraying it, rubs me a little bit wrong. But, for better or for worse, they're both going to get in the cage this Saturday, and Sandhagen will have every opportunity in the world to make this story all about him.
Yeah, and I think they miss an opportunity, because if he does win, even the build up to the fight, they miss the opportunity, because he's a good talker. He's always been, he's not scared to trash talk a little bit, and they could have built up a little bit of rivalry. I agree. I think I like that they're telling the story about TJ and the long layoff, and they are putting promotion into a fight night, but. Yeah, cover the other guy too, because this isn't a squash match for TJ. This wasn't TJ's going against Joe Soto, when he did, and this should be a easy win for him. The other guy is just as marketable.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, again, I feel like I want to break into just previewing the main event right away, but we'll talk about the implications of it later. But I mean, there's a good possibility that whoever wins this fight might be fighting for a title next. I mean, there are some things that need to sort themselves out first, but in terms of having earned a shot, they might be right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your level of excitement for the rest of the card?
Actually, extremely high for a fight night. Putting it in a vacuum, not comparing it to a pay-per-view, but there's a lot of fights. I would say this, top to bottom, there isn't a absolute blowout. There isn't one where I go, wow, this person should kill this person. Everything's fairly evenly matched. Even my most confident pick, I do see avenue of victory for one of the fighter that I'm not picking. So that always excites me. There's a lot of really, really good prospects on this card. Randy Costa, Adrian Yanez, two really good prospects facing each other.
Oh, we'll get to Houston versus Boston in a little bit.
Yeah. We have the co-main event. You have, two young girls that show a lot of potential in Aspen Ladd versus Macy Chiasson. The other main card female fight, two young girls, Macy Barber and Miranda Maverick. There's a lot of young, good talent. There's good storylines. I'm excited for this card.
Me too. I like top to bottom. I think it's full of solid talent, good, intelligent matchups. You're right. Like there's not a whole lot of squash matches. There are matches where there's one, and we'll get to it. But in my mind, there's one squash match. But there are two things I noticed, and one of them, it kind of makes sense considering this is the TJ Dillashaw return card. There are a number of fighters on this card who haven't been in the cage in a long time. That are coming back from 12, 18 months or more, close to 2 years. So it's kind of fitting that they're all on the Dillashaw card. And then there are
Julio,
a couple.
Arce has been out for a long time,
and then there are a couple people dropping in weight where I'm just kind of like, I'm not sure that's going to work out for you.
Yeah,
and we'll get to those, when we get to them. But none of them detract from the card at all. They just make it harder to pick some of these fights. Like, when we get to Julio Arce versus Andre Ewell, I'm like, oh, I would have favored you against him 2 years ago. I don't know about now. It's kind of that thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Anything else before we dive into this one?
No, man, we got 13 fights. I'm pretty much excited for every one of them. So let's do it.
Only 12. We're down to 12. First up on the UFC Vegas 32 prelims is a matchup between two women who are both looking for their first octagon win and who mutually seem to have decided that dropping in weight is their best chance of doing so. It is Diana Belbita versus Hannah Goldy. Belbita, the 25-year-old Romanian, is 13-6 overall. She's 0-2 in the UFC, having lost her debut to Molly McCann all the way back in October of 2019, and then coming back last June and getting armbarred in the first round by Liana Jojua at UFC on ESPN, Kattar versus Ige. She'll be taking on Goldy. The 29-year-old American is 5-1 overall. She's 0-1 in the UFC since getting signed out of season 3 of Dana White's Contender Series. Her debut was in August of 2019 against Miranda Granger, where she dropped a unanimous decision. Odds on this one do favor Goldy just slightly. She is -120, where you can still get Belbita at even money. The real question here is that both of these women have been flyweights up until now. Both are dropping to strawweight for this fight. My question about that is how it will affect both of them physically, obviously. And they're two very different types. Belbita is a tall, thin, willowy flyweight who will be even taller and thinner or for the weight class at strawweight, and whose problem for me at flyweight, well, aside from being kind of wild, is that she wasn't terribly physically strong. Goldy is the opposite. She was a short, stocky tank of a flyweight, and frankly, my question is just, is she going to make the weight, and how is she going to look? If Goldy makes this weight without seriously compromising herself, I do favor her in this one, just as someone who, if it comes to it, can probably grab Belbita, throw her down, and control her on the ground. And for all I know, she may actually be able to get inside Belbita's reach and tag her up on the feet as well. Belbita, for all her range on the feet, is kind of porous defensively. So, this is me just taking a wild guess. Again, this is a woman who hasn't fought. One of them hasn't fought in 18 months. Both of them are dropping down in weight for the first time. But based on what I've seen of them, I do have Goldy by decision here.
Yeah, as you mentioned, we have that long layoff right away for someone, we haven't seen her in a while. I know she's been booked a couple times. Things didn't happen. You mentioned her dropping down weight. She's absolutely ripped. I mean, you look at her, you see her, like her fitness videos on Instagram, and she got muscles on top of muscles. She used to She has a kid with Alex Nicholson. Like she's built like Alex Nicholson. She got some big muscles. That said, I'm actually not too concerned with her weight cut because she's a shorter girl, and because when you see how ripped she is, she's so disciplined with her diet that I actually think she might have an inside track. She has an in and out style of her striking, and she kind of hits and moves. Quick hands. She does lack power though because she didn't have the best technique. She didn't really sit on her punches that much. And the reason why she didn't sit on her punches is because she's throwing so many kicks. Good leg kicks. Likes the side Holly Holm side kick. She pulls her head straight back to avoid shots. We've seen her get taken down. She doesn't have the best takedown defense. And she doesn't like pressure. She really wants to work from distance. She wants to be, even though she's a shorter fighter, she wants to kind of use her speed advantage. And we haven't seen much offensive grappling. I know you said she could probably win the grappling, and I agree with that. When you see someone like Belbita, she's looked really bad and on the ground in the UFC. The only thing about her that stands out to me though is she's only 25 years old. So, she's hardly a finished product. She's a former K1 kickboxing champion. So her striking is really solid, very tight. She keeps everything inside. And when I say inside, like she doesn't throw a lot of hooks. Like everything's straight down the pipe. Good output. Like her fight against Molly McCann, she really put it on Molly McCann in the striking battle. Worked behind a jab, was cut in different angles, so she could get different looks. A lot of L steps on her strikes, if you know what I mean. Like L strikes, like where you're throwing a punch and then you kind of backing over before they respond. She often ended combinations with kicks. She threw a lot of kicks. She didn't check kicks, which was a little bit of an issue. And that happens a lot in the kickboxing world. They don't really check kicks. She battled in the clinch. I thought she was okay in the clinch against Molly McCann. She got a trip takedown against Molly McCann. She got a trip takedown against who was it? Jojua. Jojua was her last fight. Yeah, it was a trip takedown against Jojua. But weak takedown defense, which she was defending. Molly McCann took it down a couple times. But even more disturbing is how Molly McCann not only took her down, but mounted her and dropped heavy elbows on her in the second round of their fight. And also she was submitted by Jojua in her last fight. So as far as prediction goes, these are definitely two lower level fighters in the UFC. I wasn't that high on Hannah Goldy from the Contender Series. I'm actually going to go the opposite of you on this one. I'm going to go right out the box. I'll take the very slight underdog. Right out the gate. I've been taking a lot of upsets lately, and I've been dropping during the showdown's rankings really, really fast. But I think Goldy prefers a stand-up battle, and I think a stand-up battle is going to favor Belbita. I like her boxing output. I like more than Goldy's style, and I like her power and her technique a little bit more. So I'll take her. I'll take her by decision.
There you go. Some dissension and a slight upset pick right out the gate. Next up, the weight cut derby continues as Sijara Eubanks drops back down to flyweight to try and kickstart her UFC career against the debuting Elise Reed. Eubanks, the 36-year-old, is an even 6-6 overall. She's an even 4-4 in the UFC. She's currently on a 2-fight losing streak. Those losses coming to Pani Kianzad last December via unanimous decision and to Ketlin Vieira at UFC 253 back in September, also by decision. She'll be welcoming to the octagon Reed. The 28-year-old is perfect 4-0 in her career. She fought most recently at CFFC back in May, where she knocked out Hillary Rose in the closing seconds of the second round. Notably, Reed is typically a strawweight who is stepping up and taking this fight at flyweight, and Reed actually even fought at atomweight in her debut. So it is two women coming at this weight class from very different directions. That and the gap in experience and competition may inform the fact that Eubanks is one of the bigger favorites on the card. She's out there at -325, -330. You can get Reed at +270 as the substantial underdog. Keith, we talked a little about this. Some of the suspense will be whether Eubanks makes it onto and off the scale successfully. Assuming that goes okay, how do you see the fight going?
Yeah, so that is obviously I'm really worried about her moving down. Not that necessarily that she's moving down, but that she moved down at 36 years old. She's already missed weight. I mean, the biggest fight of her career was, was going to be for a title, and she missed weight when she was coming off a tough. So that's worry. I last time we broke down Sijara Eubanks, I opened it up by saying that she really frustrates me, and that's because I don't know if she's good or bad because she's so inconsistent. She doesn't frustrate anymore. And the reason why she doesn't frustrate anymore is I've decided she's not good. Like that's it. So I'm not on the fence anymore. Um, I doubt that she makes weight. Like I'd almost bet on it not happening. I'm rooting for her to make weight, but she hasn't made flyweight in 4 years. And last time she made it was on the Ultimate Fighter show. And if we remember, if we go back to that season, that was the episode where I think it was Lauren Murphy started like cutting weight to try to take her place. I think they were like cutting her dreadlocks. Like they were doing everything to make her weight. She almost didn't make it on the show, but then the finale she didn't make it. But the good thing is, if she does make it, or if the fight goes on, even if she misses weight, but the fight goes on, she won't be undersized anymore. Going forward, if she stays in the weight class, and maybe she'll gain more power going down in weight. And I especially think that will help her, considering her style really would greatly benefit if she was the more physically imposing fighter, because that's how she wants to fight. So it does make sense for her to move down. I think it's just probably a little too late. But I think about like the Aspen Lad fight where they were battling in the clinch, and she was going against a fighter like Aspen who was much bigger, much stronger. Like maybe she would have won that fight if she was the bigger fighter. Other than that, like talking about some of the X's O's there, from distance, I'd say she's a pretty good in and out style boxer, similar to Hannah Goldy we just talked about. So she wants to go in and all the way out. She can slide in the pocket and just unload heavy, quick shots. Her overhand right is pretty solid, though she will sometimes look for it too much and lack variety, which is kind of sad because her left hook is actually also very good. And she also has a sneaky high kick that she throws from time to time. She can grapple too. Good takedowns, nice top control. More of a controller on the ground than a submission threat, though the commentary will always make it sound like she's, the female Rodolfo Vieira. She's not as good as the grapplers they'll make her sound like, but she's she's definitely competent there. And cardio has been a major issue in the past. She's slowed down in fights, and it could even be more worse, being that she's dropping down to weight. Now, you really dropped the ball. I love you, and I always give you much credit. You do a lot of research. But Elise Reed, you talked about her last fight going against another New Englander and Hillary Rose, but you forgot her most famous fight, which I was in attendance for at Bellator, when she beat up porn star Orion Starr.
Wow. I did not remember that at all.
I was in attendance. Trust me, I was at the weigh-ins too. Oh, I remembered it. Okay. And I'm gonna leave it at that before I get divorced.
All right.
But before we talk about the style of Elise Reed, she is. I know she's a reservist in the military, and I think she's still actively in the military. So first of all, I want to thank her for her service. And you mentioned about her being a former atomweight that's moving all the way to flyweight. She moved, jumping 2 weight classes. And you have obviously you mentioned Sijara Eubanks coming down, so she'll be the smaller fighter. She's aggressive, very aggressive on the feet, good output. I'd say pretty good offensive boxing. That's the best part of her game. Good jab. She tends to pull her punches a little bit. She pulls back to defend, which loses power. She keeps her chin in the air, and she has no answer for leg kicks. She's very heavy. She has a boxing-oriented style, which is very heavy on the front leg. But I like her clinch battle too. Like she kind of like a brute. She can battle in the clinch, and if she gets on top, she's got some good ground pound. She's not a great wrestler though to get there. And when the fight hits match, she's really some really sloppy exchanges. I mean, like in her last fight against Hillary Rose, she was almost submitted like twice. And one of them was the inverted triangle. And if you know Hillary Rose more known for her striking herself, not really known for her grappling. So as far as prediction goes, yeah, I'm really worried about Eubanks moving down to 125. However, she is the more skilled fighter. There's a reason why she's a big favorite. I think she's definitely a UFC caliber fighter. I'm not sure about Elise Reed yet. I expect her to get some of her own takedowns, land some ground and pound, and she might even get a stoppage. So I'll say she does, and give me Sijara Eubanks by second round TKO.
Yeah, I I really like the way you laid out the dynamic of this fight there. And this, to me, there are avenues to upset written all over this. I mean, you can picture as well as I can Sijara Eubanks just looking like absolute dog shit at the weigh-ins, then completely like out wrestling Reed for the first round, just, takes her down within the first 30 seconds. Reed ends up landing one strike the whole round. Eubanks just completely controls her. And when they both get up at the end of the round, you're like, oh man, Eubanks is going to lose this because she's already exhausted. Like, I can see that in my head, but I can't call for it because the more likely avenues are she has enough left in the tank to at least win the second round, or like, you're laying out there, she actually lays enough of a whooping on her to finish this thing. So even though I'm extremely nervous about how Sijara Eubanks will look, and even though this is my pick for the fight on the preview, when I put in my picks for the Sherdog Pick'em Friday night, but depending on how Eubanks looks at the weigh-ins, I might flip this. But right now, I am going to go with Eubanks via decision.
Yeah, when we talk about Eubanks, she has some tough losses on her career. Like, you think about that Betchko hair fight. If she loses this one will top all her losses. This would be her worst one. At least in the UFC.
I think this might be curtains for her. If she loses to at 135, drops to 125, and loses to a debuting fighter that was on nobody's radar, I think Eubanks might be gone.
Yeah, but I think you're right. Yeah,
we'll talk about that Saturday night, I guess. Next up on the UFC on ESPN 27 prelims, we talked off the top about how there are quite a few fighters coming back from long absences on this card and quite a few dropping in weight. Where those two meet, we have Julio Arce, who returns for the first time in a year and a half and is dropping from featherweight to bantamweight to meet Andre Ewell. Arce, the 31-year-old Team Tiger Schulman export, is 16-4 overall. He is 3-2 in the UFC. He fought most recently all the way back in November of 2019, where he dropped a split decision to Hakeem Dawodu. He'll be taking on Ewell. The 33-year-old Californian is 17-7 overall. He is 4-3 in the UFC. He fought most recently back in February, losing a unanimous decision to Chris Gutierrez at UFC 258. Despite the change in weight and despite the layoff, Arce is a comfortable favorite here. He is out there at minus 200, where Ewell is plus 170 as the moderate underdog. Keith, I'm of the mind that even if I think Julio Arce is a much better fighter than Andre Ewell, a 2-1 favorite is scary, coming back again, almost 2 years off and dropping a weight class against a big bantamweight in Ewell. Tell me if you agree and tell me how you see this fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this should be a pick'em fight. It should, I like Arce. I've always liked Arce as a fighter. I think he's pretty technically sound. But like you mentioned, we don't know what to expect from a 2-year layoff. From basing off what we've seen him, recently or somewhat recently, he's a well-rounded fighter. Southpaw, on his feet, he works behind a jab, clean, straight left hand is pretty accurate. Not a big power puncher though. He's more of a death by a thousand cuts kind of guy. A lot of kicks, clean high kick. He disguises, southpaw onto an orthodox fighter. Can get a little wild though at times, which is an issue if I'm a coach of Arce, because he really shouldn't brawl with guys because he's technically sound and he can win out fight game. I was a little concerned with the leg kicks though. Hakeem Dawodu kind of beat up his legs in his last fight. But the biggest thing I like about Arce heading into this fight is that even though he's known for his striking, I mentioned that he's well-rounded and he's a mixed martial arts. He will sneak in a takedown. He knows that whole team really, that whole Tiger Schulman's team, him, Jimmy Rivera, not necessarily Shane Burgos. Shane Burgos is a more of a I'm going to throw down no matter what. But the other guys, they know how to win rounds. There's times where you see Jimmy Rivera wrestling and when you didn't expect him to wrestle, and same with Arce. So he can sneak in a takedown. Not the best top control. Like, he gets some takedowns and struggles to keep them down, but he can catch submission. I mean, he's got 5 submissions on his record. So he's not Ryan Hall, but he can definitely finish it from there. Ewell, also southpaw, high output. That's his thing. He beats you with output from the outside. He's obviously long and lengthy. He's a bantamweight that is taller than me. It's incredible how tall he is for a bantamweight. Uses his length really well, keeps his opponents at bay, fast hands, accurate hands. He does make the mistake of backing straight up instead of cutting angles, especially against a wrestler. If he wants to take him down, it's easier to get inside of him if he's not using lateral movement. But you got to get through that left hand, and that left hand is sharp. I also like that he'll go down to the body, which obviously, I love people go down the body. I think, that's it's funny how people talk about the jab as it's been like an ongoing thing, is underutilized in MMA, and that's maybe 10 years ago. That's not the case. Like body punches still might be underutilized, and that's something that the best strikers will pick up. And that's what I think André is one of the best strikers. He attacks the body, but he attacks the body that would also set up his big shots later, his upper one. He likes to throw step-in knees if you're getting close. He is heavy on us. He's a boxer. He's heavy on his front leg. Erwin Rivera killed his legs. But the big Achilles heel for Andre Ewell and how you got to beat him is how everyone beats him is his takedown defense. I would say it has improved since the days he was fighting Dennis Paiva and CES, but it's still really bad. And someone with any kind of wrestling background should beat Andre Ewell. So if this stays on the feet, I think Ewell can win an outside kickboxing match fairly easily. However, I don't think it does. I think Arce is smart. I think his teams. I think Tiger Schulman's team, the whole team. They have. I love when they go to them when they're cornering. They always seem to give really good advice. I'm sure they're gonna have a really good game plan to get Arce inside. I think we could see a lot of clinch battling. I think we see some takedowns from Arce. I'm not super confident instead as 2 years left, and it's always hard to pick against a guy that's so tall in the weight class. You're always like, oh man, those natural tools are there. If they can get some takedown defense, it's going to be a scary thing. But I'll take the more veteran guy. I'll take Arce. I think he wins some rounds. I think it's going to be really close. I think he wins a close. I'll say split decision. I think it's going to be that close.
There you go. I see all the same dynamic here that you do. I'm glad that you seem to see this fight hinging on how willing Arce is going to be to go for the takedown, take advantage of what has traditionally been a weak spot for Ewell. I feel exactly the same way. Like if Arce just does his come forward kickboxing thing, I think Ewell will just chew him up at range. And like you say, probably win a pretty straightforward kickboxing match. Just my question is, if his coaches have really armed him with the proper game plan here, strike enough to get yourself into range and then change levels and get him down, will he be able to do that with this weight cut? Will he be able to do that for 2 out of 3 rounds, even if he has success early? And I keep going back to Ewell has fought 3 times since the last time Arce has, and all 3 of them went all 3 rounds. I think of Arce as just like the much more seasoned and polished product, especially because Ewell was so raw when he first got to the UFC. But the dude has literally put in 15 hard rounds in the octagon since the last time we saw Arce. I think of Ewell as more of a known quantity to me right now. And I am going to go with the upset here. I mean, it's not the hugest upset on the planet, but I feel comfortable with Ewell here where, yeah, Arce will probably try to get the takedown. He probably will have some success. Everyone who's tried to has been able to get Ewell down. But Ewell's getting better at that. He's making people at least work for them. And I'm not betting on Arce's gas tank with the weight drop until I've seen him do it. So give me Andre Ewell via decision in a moderate upset here. Next up on the UFC Vegas 32 prelims, we stick with the bantamweights. And it is Houston versus Boston. It is Dr. Pepper versus Reese's Pieces. It is Adrian Yanez against Randy Costa. Yanez, the 27-year-old Texan, is 13-3 overall. He's 2-0 since joining the UFC last year out of Dana White's Contender Series. He fought most recently in March, knocking out Gustavo Lopez early in the 3rd round at UFC on ESPN Brunson versus Holland. Before that, he knocked out Victor Rodriguez with a vicious head kick in the 1st round of their fight back at the UFC's Halloween card last October. He'll be taking on Costa. The 27-year-old Joe Lozon protege is 6-1 overall. He's 2-1 in the UFC. After losing his debut to Brandon Davis, he came back with highlight reel knockouts of Boston Salmon in October of 2019, and then came back and knocked out Journey Newson with a head kick last September at UFC Fight Night, Covington versus Woodley. Yanez is a comfortable favorite here. He's minus 220, where you can get Costa at plus 175 or plus 180 or so. Keith, you got the Sox hat on. I know it pains you greatly to pick New England fighters, but does it pain you to pick this as a likely fight of the night contender?
No, yeah, no, absolutely. This is going to be a fun fight. Like how long it lasts with these two strikers, I have no idea. I mean, you think about Randy Costa, like that was the story about him coming up. Like, oh, he's knocking guys out so quickly. How do you know how good he is? I mean, I think he was 4-0, 3-0, 4-0 before he got to the UFC. They all were like under a minute.
Under a minute. Two of them, three of them were under a minute. One was like 10 seconds.
Yeah,
like head kicks. Yeah.
Even his UFC wins, though, are was it 30 seconds against Journey Newsom, give or take?
Yeah, and like 2 minutes against Boston Salmon. Yeah.
There you go. So, Randy Costa is from Taunton, Massachusetts, which is very close to my house. I was in Taunton 2 days ago. It's, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So I'll talk about my Boston guy. He's wicked good. He's a wicked good boxer. He's got long arms. He can fight on both stances, which, I've been trying not to talk about the guys who, just occasionally switches. He constantly switches. He's kind of has a little TJ Dillashaw in him in that sense, where you never know it's going to be southpaw or orthodox. Good vision. I love that he uses leg feints to set up his hands. He kind of feints with his legs. He mentioned thinking about kicks. He's accurate. He's got huge power. I mean, we've seen it with his knockouts in the regional scene. We've seen it with his knockouts in the UFC. He throws at weird angles. So he doesn't throw big hooks and he doesn't throw tight. They come in that like mid range. So they kind of come like around like this. And between the angle and his deceivingly long limbs, they land and they hurt people. It reminded me of a little, and bear with me, I'm not saying he's, at one time the best or the face of the UFC, but Randy Costa's style kind of reminds me of Chuck Liddell. Like, remember when Chuck Liddell used to throw? They would always, like, Chuck Liddell never threw a punch straight down the pipe in his life. Even like the knockouts that you remember him throwing punch was still like an angled like this. And so he's got a little Chuck Liddell in him in that sense. He also had that perfectly timed high kick, which was like a dipping. He threw a combination, then dipped, which I call it the Rob Whittaker. That's something he does. But TJ Dillashaw, who's back, he likes to throw that. That's something that Randy Costa does. The only negative you could find about Randy Costa so far in the UFC was obviously the Brandon Davis fight, but he took that fight on really short notice, and he didn't like the pressure of Brandon Davis in that fight. And I think it's so hard to know if that's the case with Randy Costa, because he wins so quickly that you don't really know if he goes deeper he can't handle pressure, or he took a UFC debut on extremely short notice, got off to a really good start, almost knocked Brandon Davis out. Like the very first punch he threw almost knocked him out. Was it more the short notice fight with the adrenaline dump, with the UFC jitters and all that? Like, did that come to him? We also haven't seen much offensive grappling from Randy Costa. He showed some pretty good defensive wrestling, and the only time we've seen him even attempt takedowns was against Brandon Davis, but at that point he looked really tired. Brandon Davis easily shrugged him off. Now move over to hold on, Adrian Yanez, now Texas's own. Yanez is simply one of the best strikers in the UFC. I mean, I should have said the same thing about Costa, but Yanez is one of the best strikers in the UFC. Costa is the aggressive power thrower. Yanez is a stalking counter striker. He's so comfortable on his feet. He just touches until it opens and appears, and then he blasts you. He's got fast hands. He's very, very accurate. Stays relaxed, not a lot of tension in his arms. We talked about this in the past. Great vision, which is something I see in both these guys. They seem like they really see punches coming at him. Good deceiving power. Like Costa has like jump off the page power, where he's just a just one of those guys. I'm sure like the first time you ever punched a punching bag, people are like, wow, you can hit. Like you didn't even know how to punch. Like you can hit. Like he has that. Yanez has just perfect technique and speed power that I'm gonna hit you in the perfect place and that's gonna push it. He's a sniper. He also he's really good at picking up his opponent's timing. Something that Israel Adesanya does. And he's good at changing his rhythm. So he's like, it's never the same attack with him. A lot of variety in his strikes. He does so well to just slip out attack, still keeping himself in position, land power shots. So all the things when I talk of the top best strikers in the UFC, that's why I'm saying this about Adrian. That's why I'm so confident. That's why I'm so high on this guy moving forward. And we also seen that Christian high kick recently, which you got to like. He does need to check leg kicks, which seems like the theme for every fighter. And he's not a good wrestler. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but his defensive wrestling has some work. When we go back, now we're going quite a ways back now, but go back to we always mentioned the Miles Johns fight in LFA. That was a much closer fight than I first remembered. But the difference with the fight was that he wasn't able to stop takedowns from Miles Johns. So now I got to go back to the neutral. I got to go back to the neutral hat. I'm stealing. Who's the guy on ESPN that does the college football? I'm kind of stealing his gimmick right now.
Lee Corso.
Lee Corso. Yeah. I'm stealing his gimmick. I apologize, Lee Corso. So who's going to win? This fight is an absolute banger. I expect both guys to throw down until someone isn't standing. Costa has probably the better power, the one punch power. However, Yanez is more technical, sniper. Who do I say wins? I mean, do I go with my hometown guy or do I go with Ben's hometown guy? I think Yanez lands the kill shot in the second round. I think Yanez just more technical. Give me Yanez by second round TKO.
I love it. Fantastic breakdown. Excellent job on the headgear switching there. I love that you pointed out how good Yanez is at spotting and adjusting to his opponent's rhythm on the feet. He's, obviously one of the best strikers in the division just on physical tools, but such an intelligent and well-coached fighter. I mean, if you saw his Contender Series appearance, you already know the story about his dad. His dad was a boxer, and then he has been at Metro Fight Club with Salsa Elise forever, just molding himself into a very well-coached mixed martial artist. For that reason, even though, as you pointed out, Costa has the superior one-shot kill shot power, especially given all the unorthodox angles of this stuff comes from. It's not only the hard shot, it's the shot that the person usually didn't see coming. I do think this favors Yanez the farther it goes. Just Costa has not been in those deep waters. Yanez has over and over again, and he's proven himself capable of finishing fights in the second and third round, where Costa, we don't know. We don't know what his gas tank will look like, except that it was not good the one time he went to the third round. But there's a thing about fighters who have been to third rounds numerous times that they know what it feels like. They're capable of making more and better in-fight adjustments. We've seen some young raw fighters who in the third round, it's not that they were tired, they didn't have any other ideas. Like, they weren't comfortable navigating those waters. So I'm with you. I have Yanez in this one. I have him by knockout. I actually have him in the second round as well, but I would not be the least bit surprised or even really upset if Costa just came out and iced him in 90 seconds. Like if this, if Costa head kicks Yanez in 90 seconds, I don't think any less of Yanez as a prospect. Just Randy Costa is going to do that to a lot of people along the way.
If Costa knocks him out, not sorry to interrupt you there, but if Yanez, I agree with you. If Yanez gets knocked out, I don't feel less about him. But man, I'm going through the roof with Costa if he gets that quick of a knockout. Yeah. Sorry, continue. I apologize.
No, and conversely, if you and I are both right and say it's just a wild round of the year candidate in the first round, but in the second, Yanez starts rolling downhill and he puts it on Costa, and halfway through the second round, we have a TKO. I'm not jumping off the Costa ship either. He is super young in the fight game, and this will just be a learning experience. And hell, these are two guys that might be meeting way further up the ladder a couple years from now. So fantastic fight. You and I both have Yanez by second round knockout, but can't wait for this one.
Would you agree with this statement before we move on? Every second that goes by, you start feeling more and more confident in Yanez.
Yes. The longer this fight goes, it favors Yanez.
Yeah, I agree.
We now head to the middleweight division for a matchup between two rising fighters who are nonetheless in need of a win right now. It is Nassourdine Imavov versus Ian Heinisch. Imavov, the 26-year-old Frenchman, is 9-3 overall. He's 1-1 in the UFC, having won his debut over Jordan Williams last October, then lost a majority decision to Phil Hawes in February at UFC Fight Night Blades versus Lewis. He takes on Heinisch. The 32-year-old former LFA middleweight champ is 14-4 overall. He is 3-3 in the UFC. He is coming off a loss to Kelvin Gastelum in the co-main event of UFC 258 back in February. Odds slightly favor Heinisch here. He's minus 150 or so. You can get Imavov at plus 125 or plus 130 on the comeback. Keith, who do you like in this one and why?
I like the matchup. First of all, we just talked off the air. This is a really intriguing matchup, as seems to be a theme on this show. So Ian Heinisch is a guy that's he's really inconsistent. One time he looks like a killer. The next fight he looks just like a guy. And especially on the feet, he's inconsistent. Like when he came back from Thailand, suddenly it was Muay Thai Heinisch, and we expected that to continue. And the next time we saw him, he looked kind of slow, and so I don't really know. So what I have seen him, he throws power combinations, like he throws hard. He likes his check hook, overhand right combo. He has good natural power. I mean, you look at him, he's just kind of like a big jock. Like if you were looking for like stereotype jock of the UFC, like Ian Heinisch would be the guy, like if we were making a, I don't know, college football movie, but you would starring UFC guys, Ian Heinisch would be like the tight end or something,
Which is ironic because, as the UFC booth will absolutely tell you 15 times on Saturday, he's the guy that like did hard time and was like a drug kingpin, but like looks like the All-American linebacker. Yeah.
Yeah. He has the most. Yeah, I know. He has the most incredible, insane story. I've interviewed him before on it, and I interviewed him, and it was insane. Then we talked off air, and it was even more insane than it was on air. I was like, oh my lord. But back to it. So some things he does good, some things that's bad. He keeps his head on the center line. He can, when you hurt him, he would just kind of plant and throw wildly, kind of ducking his head, not seeing his target. He does throw hard leg kicks, but he doesn't check kicks often, which is, again, I didn't realize. Look at my notes, that was the theme of the night. I've said this before about him in the past, and I feel even more confident in this statement that after seeing him fight Gastelum. So this is what I said about him heading into the Gastelum fight. Good wrestler, but not a great wrestler. His entries are not that good. He's more of a scramble winner. I said he's more of a funk wrestler. You see that, the way he tries to continue. When you take him down, he continues, tries to roll, stuff like that. We saw that against Gastelum. He got out-wrestled by Kelvin Gastelum, which was, I think a lot of people were surprised. Just one, but from the size difference in the two of them. But also, their backgrounds of wrestling. And then when I say by like scrambles or funk wrestling, you see him like he'll go for a Granby roll. Like we saw that against Akhmedov. We saw that against Carlos Jr. We saw it against Gastelum. The other thing that concerns me about Ian Heinisch is that he slowed down in all three of those fights I said. So if it's a heavy wrestling-based match, he's the one who actually slows down in grappling match. Now, if he has a big advantage in the grappling, he might not slow down. But if he has to battle in the grappling, it seems like he actually tires himself out. Now, move on to Imavov. The thing that just stands out to me is he's only 25 years old. That's insane to me. Well-rounded, light on his feet, seems very comfortable at a young age already on his feet. Fast hands. So nice snap on his punches. Tend to be a counter striker. I love his step back right hand, his fadeaway right hand. I do hate that he drops his hands, but he has good power. Like I wouldn't say one punch knockout power, but plus power. Like he connects, he's going to hurt you. We saw it in his last fight against who was his last fight? Phil Hawes. Phil Hawes. Sorry, I apologize. Phil Hawes. He had Hawes hurt, and if he didn't respect the power of Phil Hawes, which obviously, if you've ever seen Phil Hawes fight, you need to respect his power no matter what. But if he didn't respect his power as much as he did, and he went in and he went berserker, he might have got the knockout in the third round. Like Phil Hawes was that hurt. I do like his in-close clinch battling, clinch striking. And he's a good wrestler himself. Good entries on his takedowns, relentless on his takedown attempts. If he misses the first one, he chain wrestles well. If he's on top, solid top controls, good beat you up, ground and pound. Like he's a submission threat too. So I like that he on the ground. He's not looking for one or the other. He's kind of working both. And I even go back to like the Jordan Williams fight. We almost popped Jordan Williams' head off with a guillotine. This fight, this is a really intriguing fight. And this fight to me simply comes down to is how much do you think Imavov has developed at this point of his career? If this fight was 2 years from now, I would feel very comfortable in picking Imavov to win. Now I'm not nearly as comfortable. That said, I think he's a quicker fighter. I think he's the highest ceiling. And as we just mentioned about Heinisch, if Heinisch doesn't have a huge advantage in wrestling, I've seen him fade, and I don't think he has a huge advantage. I don't know if he has an advantage in wrestling. If he does, I don't know if it's a huge advantage. Now he's the bigger, naturally bigger guy. He's going to be stronger. Obviously, he's faced a higher competition. But sometimes you just got to go with the young guy. And I think this is going to be a really good opportunity for Imavov. I think it's going to be one of those fights that open people's eyes. I think Imavov wins everywhere. I think he picks up a decision victory. And I'm locking this in as my upset special.
Keith chilling, stealing my thunder. I should have gone first. I wish I had like a beret or something to put on. 2 quick corrections before I give my pick. Imavov is actually 26 now. He did just tick over the clock a couple months ago. And I said Frenchman. Obviously, he fights out of France. He's a teammate of Francis Ngannou, but he is, of course, Dagestani by birth. You know, I'm not sure what he claims, but I imagine he refers to himself as a Russian. I absolutely feel the same that you do on this, that I think Imavov is on the way up, even if Heinisch is a more complete product now. And then you mentioned the Hawes fight. And given that, you know, Heinisch is usually the guy who gets tired faster in his fights, especially if they're wrestling heavy affairs, that factored in as well. But I'm absolutely with you here. I think this is going to be a bit of a coming out party for Imavov. I think he actually will have to come back to win this. I expect Heinisch to be able to dictate things early on. But give me Imavov to win the second and third round, pick up easily the best win of his career to this point. And as a guy as young as he is in a still wide open and aging middleweight division, you know, we could be hearing a lot more out of this guy in the next year or two. With that, we come to the feature prelim of UFC Vegas 32. We are still in the middleweight division, and it is Punahele Soriano versus Brendan Allen. Soriano, the 28-year-old Hawaiian, is 8-0 overall. He's 2-0 since joining the UFC out of Season 3 of Dana White's Contender Series. He fought most recently in January at UFC on ABC Holloway versus Cater, knocking out Dusko Todorovic in the first round. He's taking on Allen, the 25-year-old Wisconsinite by way of Florida, is 16-4 overall. He's 4-1 in the UFC since joining also out of Dana White's Contender Series Season 3. He fought most recently in April, tapping out Carl Roberson late in the first round with an ankle lock. That allowed him to bounce back from his first UFC loss, which was a knockout at the hands of the resurgent Sean Strickland last November. Odds on this one are very close to a pick'em. You can get Allen at minus 115 or so. Soriano, not quite at even money, but like minus 105. So watch for that one to move. This is one of those prospect fights where I'm almost disappointed. I'm almost like, oh, do they have to fight each other already? Because these are two guys that I'm really high on for different reasons. And it's almost like I just don't want to like smash these two, like, you know, these two Matchbox cars up against each other just yet. I wish these guys had met, you know, another year, 18 months down the road when maybe one or both of them was actually, you know, on the verge of the top 15. My concern in this fight is that Brendan Allen is a particular type of fighter whose success is very dependent on matchups, in that he is a guy who wants to grapple and is a submission specialist, but doesn't have great entries. So he knows what he needs to do to get the fight where he wants it to be. Puna Soriano knows what Allen needs to do to get the fight where he wants it to be. And the question is whether he's able to do so or Soriano does what he wants to do, which is punch his face off. Despite the fact that Soriano is the much less experienced guy in terms of total fights, he's fought good competition, like basically since like his third fight. Like he's been fighting a decent level of competition, where it took Allen quite a bit longer to really get up to UFC or near UFC level competition. You'll have a more detailed X's and O's breakdown of this than I will for sure. But I'm picturing Allen coming forward, kickboxing, looking for every opportunity to kind of, collapse the pocket and get his hands on Soriano, either dropping levels for a takedown or looking for the clinch where he can look for a trip or a throw. And Soriano's like footwork is not a finished product at this point, but his power is numbing, and I just see him catching Allen with something and making this quick and ugly. And almost like when we were talking about the Yanez versus Costa fights, if Soriano punches Allen's face off in about 2 minutes, which is kind of what I'm picking to happen, it doesn't drop Allen's stock for me all that much. Like, Allen is what he is, and he's always going to have trouble against a certain type of fighter. But it will make me, even more excited about Soriano. But yeah, give me Puna Soriano by first round knockout.
Wow. So we just talked about Imavov. I said he was 25. He's actually 26. Brendan Allen is 25, and
Yep.
It's so funny that you mentioned him as as a prospect. Two young prospects fight each other. I have such a hard time of thinking about Brendan Allen as a prospect because I've seen him fight so many times. Between it seemed like he was fighting he had all these fights in the LFA, headlining LFA, then Contender Series, and he actually has quite a bit of fights under his belt already in the UFC. So it's so hard to be like, wow, this guy's only 25. Like, he is so good, not only like a lot of experience, but good experience. He's fought really good guys. But I feel about Brendan Allen about the same ways I just felt about now that LFA champ we just talked about, Ian Heinisch. I really don't know if he's that good or not. And that's what I said about Ian Heinisch. What I said about I used to say about Sijara Eubanks. At times he looks great, and other times he looks like just kind of hold on. At times he looks not only great, but wow, this guy could be a top 15 middleweight soon. And then other times he just looks like a mid-level card talent at best. So I don't really know yet. I'm assuming in the next 2 or 3 fights I'll have a grasp on Brendan Allen, but I'll admit, I don't know how I feel about him yet. He isn't a great athlete, but he makes it up, as you mentioned, with just his high output, pressure striking style. He has a high guard defense. He does stand up pretty high, but he has good power. You just look at him. He's a built guy. He's a big middleweight. And at 25, he still hasn't reached his power years. And if he can clean up, he's the guy, we talked about Ian Heinisch going to Thailand and training a little while. That's something Brendan Allen should do. Because if he can clean up some of his techniques, he tends to lunge a little bit and overextend. Some of that is a style to his striking where he's striking into his shots, so that's why he's overextending. He's striking to close the distance. He throws a lot of kicks. He throws a lot of kicks because, one, they hurt, especially the calf kicks he throws. But also, if you grab one of his legs, it starts to scramble. He wants that. Though Sean Strickland had a lot of success with the calf kicks on him, he will look to wrestle a lot. As you mentioned, he doesn't have the best entries. He's kind of sloppy. He seems like a guy that and I'm going to say the same thing about Mickey Gall. He's a guy who's done a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but they stop practice on their knees. I've used that many times, but you'd be a better grappler if you drill takedowns for the first half hour of the practice. But then, as he's looked sometimes really sloppy in grappling exchanges, all the times he looks brilliant. Look at his last fight. The heel hook that was beautiful, but then other times he'll chase a submission and miss it. So I'm not really sure what to get. And the other thing I'm worried about him, well, he's got a lot of experience, a high level experience. I'm worried about his longevity because it goes both ways. It's nice to have a lot of experience, but he's also taken a lot of damage, over these years. Namura Soriano, southpaw, a little undersized for the weight class, which is so ironic as you were talking about his power, and he does carry big power. Imagine if he was the same size as a guy like Brendan Allen, but on the feet, he just wants to slide in the pocket. He wants to brawl. He wants to throw hammers and see if you can take it. He's pretty accurate with his strikes too. His left hand is a moneymaker. We saw that in his last fight against Dusko Stodorovic. Like, he could not miss his left hook. He mixes kicks in with his combos. His chin, I haven't seen him get rocked yet, so that's good. And we've seen him fight a lot. Former NCAA wrestler. Wrestling definitely is plan B for him, but he knows that he needs to go to plan B enough just to have the threat to open up his hand. So that's one thing. That shows a lot of maturity for a guy. Quick double leg entries, blast through your hips. Shows great strength. You can pick a guy up in the air, slam him. Just a brute kind of guy. Just a really explosive, strong guy. Can get some trip takedowns in the clinch. Also, really, I mean, he's a scary guy on top of ground and pound. So, as for a prediction, this is one of my favorite fights in the card. Soriano is the better athlete, but Allen might be more polished and has faced the better competition at this point. However, I like Puna's speed, explosiveness, his power. Of most of the weapons of all the weapons that they have together, his power is the thing that jumps out to me most. I think this is going to be a war, but I think Puna lands the hardest shot. I think he knocks out Brendan Allen in the second round. Give me Soriano, second round knockout, and I'm picking this as my fight of the night pick. I think it's going to be a crazy back and forth scramble war.
There you have it. 2 picks for Punahele Soriano to remain undefeated to close out the UFC on ESPN 27 prelims. The UFC Vegas 32 main card kicks off with a welterweight matchup featuring yet another fighter on this card dropping down in weight for the first time in his UFC career. It is Mickey Gall versus Jordan Williams. Gall, the 29-year-old from New Jersey, is 6-3 overall. He is 5-3 in the UFC. He fought most recently last June, dropping a unanimous decision to Mike Perry at UFC on ESPN, Poirier versus Hooker. He will be taking on Williams, the 30-year-old Californian who has competed at middleweight up until now, is 9-4 overall. He is 0-1 since finally joining the UFC after his third appearance on Dana White's Contender Series. I will leave it to Keith to tell us if that is a record or not, but he debuted against Nassourdine Imavov, actually, dropping a unanimous decision last October at UFC on ESPN Home versus Aldana. Williams, despite that setback, is a moderate favorite here. He is out there at -165, where you can get Gall at +145. Man, I wrote a little bit about Gall in my column this week as one of a couple of fighters on this card who are under a little bit of additional pressure. And on paper, it doesn't look like he should be under that much pressure. He's 5-3 in the UFC. He's lost 1 fight, so it's not like he's on any kind of streak. But it didn't have to be this way. Like, in 2021, we didn't have to be thinking of Mickey Gall as the guy that the UFC signed for gimmick fights, and for some, like, unexplainable reason he ended up sticking around for 5 or 6 years. It didn't have to be that way. I mean, obviously, when they signed him out of Dana White's looking for a fight as a 1-0 prospect, it was explicitly because they were looking for someone to fight CM Punk. So he fought Mike, 1-0 Mickey Gall fought 0-0 Mike Jackson. Gall tapped him out easily in like a minute, and then he tapped out, and then Gall tapped out Brooks again very easily, made him look silly. And then after that, he tapped out Sage Northcutt. And the difference is Northcutt, despite obviously being kind of a walking example of the UFC overextending itself looking for stars, Sage Northcutt was a UFC quality welterweight. Like, they didn't let him go because he was losing fights. He had a winning record in the UFC. He was like, I think he was like 6-2 in the UFC when they let him go or something. At that point, that's December 2016. Gall could have gone one of 2 ways. He could have gone and become, if not a contender, at least just a solid action fighter in the welterweight division. And in 2021, we'd be like, hey, man, you remember when Mickey Gall got signed just so they could find someone to fight CM Punk? Isn't it crazy that he's, on the outskirts of the top 15? That didn't happen. Like, Gall has completely plateaued since then. Gall's problem in 2016, and this is what I just said about Brendan Allen, but only triple it for Gall. He is a guy that wants to grapple, needs to grapple, and is a terrible wrestler. Is just terrible at getting the fight to the ground when and how and where he wants it. Like, it's not like I was clinging hard to the Mickey Gall bus, or I guess bread truck it would be. But whatever was left, I let go when he got soundly out wrestled by Mike Perry last summer. Like, Mickey Gall needs to win this fight if he wants to go down as something other than like a novelty footnote in UFC history, or worse yet, go down as like Mike Perry's last UFC win. And he's taken on a guy in Williams that I'm really excited to see Williams at welterweight. The guy, you know, he's a very sound striker who seemed a little undersized for 185. We found out why. It's because the guy has diabetes and just like couldn't treat it. The dude was taking like dog insulin. I won't go into a 30-minute aside about like healthcare issues, but he is now properly taken care of and can diet like a regular professional fighter can. I can't wait to see him at 170. And you know what? This is a very suitable first test for him, because it's a guy who, you know, if he blunders, Gall can make him pay for it. If this, you know, goes to the ground and they're fresh, they're dry, you know, Gall can tap him out. Otherwise, this should be a heavy bag routine for Jordan Williams. I'll leave the X's and O's to you, but I'm picturing heavy bag routine. Give me Jordan Williams by just third round TKO by an accumulation of damage. It'll be a coming out party for Williams as a very interesting new face in the 170-pound division. And even if it is not the last time we see Mickey Gall in the octagon, it's just going to further the notion that he's been a stagnant fighter, even though he's still not even 30 yet.
Yeah, it's funny. I just talked about Brent Allen, and I said that he's a prospect that I always think of as a veteran. Like, Mickey Gall's the opposite. Like, I always think of him as a prospect, and then I'm like, dude, this guy's 29. Like, he's not a prospect at all. Like, this is what you get from him. And at 29, he's probably not going to get much better than he is right now. I think we kind of know where he's going to be. He's a low-level UFC talent at best at this point. He's not a great athlete. He lost to Mike Perry when Mike Perry didn't even have a cornerman except for his girlfriend.
Let me interject one thing real quick. I mean, I've got love for Mike the Truth Jackson. Like, he, you know, I consider him a personal friend. I see him around here at shows all the time. And he would agree with me that if Mike Jackson is the only guy that you've beaten that is still on UFC roster, that is not a good sign for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Somehow Mike Jackson's on the roster. But sorry, I don't mean to insult your friend.
No, he's like, I'm like a glitch in the Matrix. I know I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah,
like that's his new line. I love it. But yeah,
like the what's that? Is it Office Space where the guy keeps going to work and
like he's in the basement with his like red swing line stapler. That's Mike Jackson.
Yeah. Yeah. So he lost to Mike Perry. Mike Perry's only cornerman was his girlfriend. So that's not a good win. He's long and lengthy, but he more uses movement to keep his distance than to use his physical tools, his long legs, his long arms. He did not like the pressure of Mike Perry at all in that fight. He on the feet, he throws straight. Like he does best that he can with the tools that he has. He's just not a physically gifted guy. Like, he throws straight punches down the pipe. His step back right hand did land a lot against Mike Perry, but he lacks power. He keeps his chin high in the air. I give him credit. He throws a lot of kicks. He just stays busy with them, but they're not powerful. You mentioned his weak offensive wrestling. Same thing I said about Brent Allen. He's done a lot of jiu-jitsu, starting from the knees, doing the, you know, fist bump and then let's start rolling. Fist bump for one guy, pulls guard immediately. Weak takedown defense, as you mentioned, get out wrestled by Mike Perry. He makes it worse because he jumps to guillotines. He struggled to get Mike Perry off of him. He is a submission threat, but he's not the. They're gonna make him sound like he's. Oh my God, here goes Mike Perry. You go down in Mike Perry's world. He's up there with Travis Lutter with his jiu-jitsu, but you know, he's not going to submit many guys in the UFC, higher level guys. He has taken a lot of damage already in the UFC, a lot of damage in that Mike Perry fight. He faded against Diego Sanchez. Remember, he said he was having like kidney failure from a weight cut. So that's this you know, is definitely concerning. Moving to Williams, as you mentioned, dropping down weight, the diabetes thing. You've been following the diabetes story. I didn't realize that he's getting good treatment. That I didn't know it's possible. And if he's good, and we finally get to see a guy who's at least on an equal playing field, health-wise, with other guys. That I'm really excited about this match with Steve. He's a guy I liked in the Contender Series. I thought he should have got a contract earlier than when he actually did. He's athletic. He's a southpaw, fast hands, power in both of his hands. His straight left really is a good tool of his. He tends to drop his hands, but he does that, which I don't like. But he does, to his fairness, when he strikes, he bounces his head off the center line a lot, so he is hard to hit when he's trying to stay outside technical. When he's being really aggressive, then he can take a lot more damage. But that's what happens when you're aggressive. You turn up the volume, you're gonna get hit more. He mixes in wrestling. He's a good wrestler. Fast entries in his wrestling. Strong takedown defense if he wants to keep it on the feet himself. If you take him down, he's really hard to hold down. He's so explosive. He just pops right back up. Though he has given up his back at times to get back up, which I don't like, especially the higher he goes up in the UFC. But if he's on top, good ground and pound. So I am worried about Williams making the weight. I'm worried how that affects him. If he makes it clean, I feel way more confident come Friday once I see him weigh in. But if he makes it easy, if he's, the weigh-in start and he's the second, third, fourth fighter on the scale, I'm feeling much better about this pick. I think that's the only thing that stops him in this fight is physical weight issues. Because if he's the same weight and he carries even close to the power that he carried up one weight class, I like him big. I think he puts Gall out by a KO. I'm going to say he knocks, Gall's tough, so Gall can take some damage and he's got to move around. But I say Williams catches him. And Williams I wrote down second round TKO, but you know what? I'm going to go first round. I say he knocks out Mickey Gall in the very first round. And you know what? Hold on a second. I'm sorry. So what's the odds? So Williams is, I know he's a favorite. How much is he a favorite by?
-165, Gall +145.
-165. I think he should be a bigger favorite. I think he should be -250. So I'm gonna lock it in. So I'm locking this in as my best bet of the night. If you're a gambler, please gamble responsibly. If you lose money, don't blame me. Don't bet your house. But if you are a gambler and you are asking me for one bet, I like Williams here at -165. I think it's good odds.
And consider the prop by KO, as Keith and I are both picking him to finish this one. We head back down to the flyweight division for a matchup between one of the division's hottest prospects and one of its formerly hottest prospects who is looking to turn things around, as it is Miranda Maverick versus Maycee Barber. Maverick, the 24-year-old, is 9-2 overall. She's 2-0 since joining the UFC out of Invicta. She pounded Liana Jojua into a doctor stoppage after the first round at UFC 254 last October, then came back and took a one-sided unanimous decision over Jillian Robertson at UFC 260 this March. She'll be taking on Barber. The 23-year-old Rufus Sport product is 8-2 overall. She's 3-2 in the UFC, and she is coming off the first two losses of her career. She lost to Roxanne Modafferi via unanimous decision last January at UFC 246, then came back this February and dropped a unanimous decision to Alexa Grasso at UFC 258. Odds in this one slightly favor Maverick at the moment. She is -135, where you can get Barber at +115. Year and a half or so ago, Maycee Barber as the future was probably the most appropriate nickname in all of MMA. She was 21 years old. She was 8-0. She had absolutely walloped her first three UFC opponents after walloping her Dana White's Contender Series opponent. She looked like someone that, not just the future, but maybe the present, this is someone who is going to be a high-level contender at flyweight sooner rather than later. Since then, obviously it's been setbacks. The Modafferi fight, she did suffer an injury during the fight there. It compromised her to some extent, whether a better version of Barber would have gone on to beat Modafferi anyway, or just Modafferi is the type of tough and wily veteran that was going to take full advantage of that. That's up for discussion. The Grasso fight was much more concerning to me because she fought someone in Grasso who is a striker by preference, coming up from strawweight, and she got kind of out-wrestled and bullied around. It's concerning to me because that was the first time that Barber, or at least a healthy Barber, had gotten pushed around by the other fighter. Her whole game on the way coming up, I mean, you will be able to explain it better than me, but I don't see any of her individual skills as being that polished, but she gets by on aggression and athleticism and brute strength and very good finishing instincts. So to see her just, I picked her to beat Grasso. I thought Grasso was a fantastic style matchup for her, and I was dead wrong. Just Grasso was too big and too strong. If that's a sign that Barber is going to run up against that kind of wall against the higher level flyweights in the UFC, that's a big problem. It's almost the same way the light switch flipped for me when Rafael dos Anjos moved up to welterweight, and I saw the first couple of guys just do to him what he was doing to everyone at flyweight or at lightweight. It's like, okay, I've seen your ceiling here. It's hard. Like, I want to make jokes about, well, no, she's not the future, she's the past. I can't say those things about a 23-year-old, woman. Like she has all the time in the world to fix these things, but at least in terms of her current arc of development, I mean, we might see her ceiling here, and she's taking on someone in Maverick who, in much the same way, like gets by on explosive athleticism, but Maverick is more of a strike first fighter who is willing to bully in the clinch and willing to take things to the ground. Whereas I see Barber as someone who more swings her way in so that she can throw the other person on the ground and like do work on him there. This will be the first time in Barber's career that she is the betting underdog. Like that says a lot right there. Unless she's made some serious changes since the Grasso fight, and I don't know how many she would have made since then, I think she's going to have trouble with Maverick. Barber is strong, but she's not one of the taller, rangier flyweights in the division. And my concern with Maverick is always whether she's going to be able to make her game work against someone with a lot of reach on her, because she is so short and compact. But I think Maverick is just gonna like kick Barber to the legs, kick her to the body. If Barber tries to, clinch and do her Hulk smash thing, I think Maverick's going to be strong enough to stand up to it and probably punish her for trying. Like, she's nasty in the clinch. I mistakenly picked Barber to beat Grasso. I mistakenly picked Maverick to lose to Robertson. I've learned my lesson on both fronts. This is going to be a bad look for Maycee Barber, but give me Miranda Maverick by a pretty straightforward unanimous decision.
Let me ask you this. If we could go back in time and Miranda Maverick was brought up to the UFC the same time Maycee Barber, would have been a smart move to promote Maverick with the same push that they gave Barber? I don't know if that's even a fair question.
As a fighter, like just in terms of like her actual potential as a fighter, maybe, yeah. But there were several reasons that they couldn't. She already had a couple losses coming up, so she didn't have that like sheen of the undefeated prospect. Didn't have the weird tennis dad thing where like, her parents were training her and her brother from the time they were like 4.
Parents aren't living through her like Macy's is.
Yeah.
Macy can self-promote very well. Like she, right. Miranda's the conservative Christian girl, and Macy's,
she's the conservative Christian girl who's also like working on like her like postgraduate degree. So if they started promoting her, they might be like, well, she's going to get like a 6-figure like civilian like salary here any minute and like walk away. Like, there were all kinds of reasons you wouldn't want to from a promotional perspective, even if maybe she had a higher ceiling as a fighter.
Yeah. So Maycee Barber is in a really tough situation. You mentioned the same thing. Like, a lot of people have jumped off the bandwagon. She is only 23. But I think the whole John Jones, I'm going to win the title, younger than John Jones thing, like she added this extra pressure on her that like no one needed to know. Like, that story could have came out like when she was finally fighting for the title. Then she could show the countdown. Oh, I'm close. Yeah, I got 6 months, something like that. And it seems like when you come out, if you're young and you have promise and you fall, the ones that believe their own hype, or at least promoted their own hype, I don't want to say believers, but promoted their own hype, tend to get the most hate after that. It's like people love to hate on those people. Now, as far as her style, she's aggressive. I think she uses feints well. I think she's a better fighter. Like, I feel like what happened is a pendulum happened. Like she was, good, but people started thinking she was like legit gotta beat Valentina Shevchenko. The people were asking her, 115, 125 or both. She's asking her at that time Weili Zhang and Valentina Shevchenko. So the pendulum she was so amazing. And then I think she loses a couple, and now the pendulum has gone the other direction where, she's a bone. She was not that good. She's going to get smoked. And I think she's somewhere in between, I think there is a lot of raw potential with her. I think she has good raw power. I think she has a mean streak in her, which I think, there's actually a lot of girls on this fight. Elise Reed, she shows some mean streak. Aspen Ladd has it, like, is anybody. And Maycee Barber has that. Like, if she has you hurt, she can finish you. She has been hurt in her fights. I mean, think about the JJ Aldridge hurt her briefly and before she turned the tables. Obviously, Roxanne Modafferi. I am also going to give her a pass. I mean, she suffered a serious injury during that very early. And I know Roxanne Modafferi dropped her, whether it was as early as her dad said it was. I think he said it was like the first punch thrown, or was it later on? Who knows? And then obviously the last fight, Alexa Grasso kind of styled on her. But the reason why she gets hurt is she drops her hands. And she does not like being pressured. I mean, JJ Aldridge had early success on it. It was from just basically forcing Barber on her back foot with her chin high in the air. She pulls her head straight back. So those are some names, but she got some positive. Like I said, the raw power. She's a good athlete. She's good in close corners. She's a bit of a brute. She's strong. I am surprised that Alexa Grasso had the success she did. Not that Alexa Grasso beat her, but where she had the success, like you said. I agree with that. But she usually can pin you against the fence and just like dirty it up a little bit, get some dirty boxing in there, and make it a mean fight, and she wins that one. She's not a wrestler, but if she ends up on top, she has really good ground and pound. In fairness, even with an injury and against a fairly good grappler, Roxanne Modafferi, she had times where she actually landed some reversals on Modafferi while she was on her back, but she struggled to get up from the bottom. I thought she showed some extreme toughness in that Modafferi fight, despite the injury. And Alexa Grasso is even though Alexa Grasso won in a way that we didn't expect her to win, I thought she showed some on the feet too. It's just a really weird matchup coming off your first career loss and such a major injury that they actually match her against a better fighter, Alexa Grasso, than the girl she lost to, Roxanne Modafferi. It's just a weird matchup. Now, we're spending so much time on Maycee Barber, we probably should talk about Miranda Maverick. This girl's only 24. She is we talk about how built in raw power that Maycee Barber is. I don't know if Miranda Maverick has raw power. I think she has like country girl power. Like she's like a Matt Hughes type, where she's throwing around hay barrels and wrangling up sheep right now. Like she's probably like pulling in the cows right now on the farm. I don't even know if she grew up on a farm. I think she did. I'm pretty sure she did. But she's absolutely, you know what? Like she somehow there's got to be like a Alexia Oleinik, like is a descendant of like a father of hers or probably a grandfather of hers somewhere, because like she has that like Alexia Oleinik just backwoods strong, Russian strong. She's absolutely ripped. Southpaw, has a Muay Thai style to her, uses movement really well. She ducks in and out of range really well. Good volume. I like that she attacks with combinations. She throws some kicks in there. She's creative with her kicks. She likes push kicks. Like she'll come in and so she'll like throw a combination, and then when the opponent comes to like, a lot of times people try to get back that punch if you land a punch, then she'll throw that side kick and kind of create her space. But there's like layers. It's like 3 levels to her. If you're on the outside, she just beats you up with leg kicks and movement. But then you start coming inside, which like low-end Jojua tried doing, and you're eating hard, mean elbows in the clinch. I mean, you see that what that elbow did to Jojua. She can just physically muscle you against the fence, get some takedowns. And then if you're, like you said, if you're always in, she's a good grappler. We saw it against Jillian Robinson. We thought Jillian Robinson would have the advantage in the grappling, and then sometimes she did. But late in the fight, it was her that was winning the grappling. Good timing on her takedowns, good top control. She likes to hold down the pressure first before advancing. Looks like trap down legs like Khabib does, trap down an arm like Khabib did. Brutal ground and pound, good back take. She has 4 submission wins in her short career. Though I don't like that she chases submission. She'll lose some position. I don't like that. And I would still say her biggest weakness is probably her defensive wrestling. We saw that against Jillian Robertson. But at the end of the fight, it wasn't. Like, she was winning those battles. She made adjustments, which I also like, which showed maturity. So as far as prediction goes, I being that Maycee Barber has lost 2 fights in a row, like, I kind of want her to win. Not that I don't root. I root for my pick. That's what I pick. I don't want to see a 23-year-old girl get the hate that she's going to get. I don't know why. I don't. That says, I like Miranda Maverick. I like Miranda Maverick as a prospect going forward. I'm not saying she's going to win the title, but she's a hot prospect, and I just think she's better everywhere. And I think she's going to beat up. I think this is going to be like Macy stuck against the cage, getting pounded on with uppercuts, maybe some takedowns herself, being on bottom. And I don't think it's going to be that close. I think Miranda Maverick wins this running away. So give me like a 30-27. I wouldn't even be surprised if it's 30-26. Like, Miranda Maverick's going to beat the brakes off of her. As I just said, she's not as bad as people say she are. Then I picked Miranda Maverick to smoke her.
Well, I mean, I think you're the same as me in that it's an indication of what a good matchup this is for Maverick and how much we're both kind of behind her.
Exactly. Like, I like Maverick as a prospect moving forward, and then where their strengths are, they're the same strengths.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but they're taking the same science class, but one's a B student, one's an A student. Yeah.
That's a very good analogy. Next up on the main card, it is a featherweight matchup between Darren Elkins and Darrick Minner. Elkins, the 37-year-old Indiana native, is 25-9 overall. He is 15-8 in the UFC. He won his most recent outing, taking out Luis Eduardo Garagori in the 3rd round last November with a rear naked choke. That snapped a 4-fight losing streak for him. Those losses coming to Alexander Volkanovski, Ricardo Lamas, Ryan Hall, and most recently Nate Landwehr, to whom he dropped a unanimous decision last May. He'll be taking on Minner. The 31-year-old Nebraska native is 26-11 overall. He is 2-1 in the UFC. He did appear on Dana White's Contender Series Season 3, but was not signed immediately out of that episode, but instead came in last year, I believe, as a late COVID replacement. He dropped that debut to Grant Dawson by a 2nd round. It wasn't exactly a Von Flue choke, but it was kind of a, like a shoulder squeeze choke. But bounced back from that with back-to-back wins over TJ Laramie and most recently Charles Rosa, whom he defeated by unanimous decision back in February at UFC Fight Night Blades versus Lewis. Minner is actually the slight favorite here. He is -150, where you can get the veteran, the damage, the Indiana native Elkins at +130 if you believe in him. Keith, do you believe in him?
Do I believe in Darren Elkins? Like, I believe he exists. If that's what you're asking me, like, I believe in his existence. I mean, Darren, if he's 37, he's got like 250 fights in the UFC. Like, we know what we're getting Darren Elkins at this point. Like, I'm not gonna go too much into his style. If you're watching this show, you're a hardcore MMA fan. You've seen Darren Elkins fights. We know we get. He's not much of an athlete, but he's insanely tough. On the feet, he's slow, throws arm punches. To his credit, he has some pretty good body kicks. Like, he throws some weird body kicks. He's a good wrestler. He's relentless with his wrestling, grinding style, push you against the cage. He wants to stay glued on to you, want to weigh you down that way. If he actually gets you to the ground, he's going to hold you down for a while till you make sure he has a position, and then he's going to start getting busy with his ground and pound. His last 2 fights, he does have 2 submission wins, so he is overall it's great. He's not known for being a huge submission threat, but if you make a mistake, he can finish the fight by submission. But what I love about Darren Elkins, even at 37 years old, in a weight class that isn't known for older guys having success, and in fairness, he's on a 1-fight winning streak. He lost a whole bunch of fights before that. Lost a bunch of fights to guys higher level than his last opponent, and higher level than Darrick Minner. But he's one of the guys that he understands how he has to win, and he actually uses cardio not as like a complement to your tools, but actually as the tool, as the weapon. Like when we think about, usually we break down a fight, we can break them down by striking, and we break them down by grappling. Generally speaking, most people, how's it striking, how's it grappling? Like, Elkins looks at it 3 ways. Like, this is how I am a striker. Here's how I'm a grappler, and here's how I am in cardio. And like he looks like, oh, I'm a 10 at cardio. This guy's a 4 at cardio. I need to win the cardio game. Oh, and how do I win the cardio game? I'm a 10 at wrestling. He's a 9 at wrestling. So that's why I beat the guy. So, I mean, that's what he is. The only other thing I have to say about Darren Elkins at 37 is he has taken on a lot of, wait for it, damage over the years. Yeah, sorry. I'm a dad. That was a dad joke.
Hey, he invites it.
Yeah, move over to, I mean, Darren Elkins would like my dad jokes. So would Alexei Olenek. Move over to Darrick Minner. So I didn't change any of my notes after the Charles Rosa fight because, like, nothing changed. Like, I was so what happens? I'll pull back the curtain a little bit. What I do is when I look at a fighter, I look at my last notes, and I see where I left off. Like, what was the last? I usually write out like, oh, I watched a lot of this fight. I watched a lot of that fight. I have my notes, and then I watch the last fight as a starting point, and then I will see if something jumps out to me or something changed. I say, oh, he does this. Oh, suddenly he doesn't make that mistake. When I watched Darrick Minner, like, I didn't make a single note about him in the Charles Rosa fight. It was like, yeah, everything I said about him is still the same. So I'm going to read you the same exact notes I wrote for Charles Rosa. I just want, just in case someone really pays attention to my notes, really good. Like, you already said about him. Very fast starter. He's got like 25 first-round finishes or something like that to his name. On the feet, he's high output, switches stance a lot, uses a lot of movements, though his actual striking, his punches are bad. He's lacks techniques. He throws looping overhand punches. Don't really throw him to land. He just throws them to eventually close the distance to strike. Chin is high in the air. If you blitz him, he backs straight up. He always slips to the same exact side. He's going to get high kicked one of these days on that side. Throws lots of kicks, though. He just kind of, like I say, he's throwing strikes either to score some points, he's not trying to hurt you, or close the distance, and he just lacks power. He is a good grappler, though. He's a former NCAA wrestler, good doubles and single leg entries, good at winning scrambles. But if he can't get his opponent down, he'll just pull guard. Like, he's that confident. He'll play the jiu-jitsu game, and he's so confident in his jiu-jitsu that sometimes when you go in for a takedown, he doesn't defend the takedown. He'll let you take him down because he wants to work out. He has 22 submission wins in his career. He likes to, like, specialties or attacks on the neck. He also likes leg locks. He'll look for leg locks, heel hugs, knee bars, anything, below the waist kind of submission. He was submitted by Grant Dawson in his UFC debut, but Grant Dawson is also a very fantastic grappler. He was, I believe that was a short notice fight. That's just a really tough matchup in the first fight. But he followed it up by submitting TJ Laramie in the second fight, and then he out-grappled Charles Rosa in his third fight. So prediction, who do I think wins? Pre-tape study, I wasn't picking this guy, but I'm picking Elkins in an upset. And I'm picking Elkins just for 3 reasons. And I think it's going to be 100% on Minner, like, losing the fight, than it is going to be on Elkins winning. One, if the fight remains standing, this is actually a fight that Elkins could win a stand-up match, believe it or not. I'm not saying that he can't get struck by Minner, but, like, there's actually one of the few people on the list that Elkins could outstrike. But more, I can see Minner pulling guard on Darren Elkins, which is what Darren Elkins would want. And you need space. Like, you pull guard, but then you create space with your hips. Like, Darren Elkins is not going to give you space. He's going to lay on you. He's going to pin you. And I feel like this is going to be one of these fights where it's like, I'm scratching my head saying, like, why is Minner doing this? And he starts chasing submissions that Elkins defends. And he all of a sudden 15 minutes runs out and he didn't get a submission, and Elkins wins a decision just from top control. That's what I'm expecting. So give me Darren Elkins by decision in a small upset.
Okay, so to spoil things, I have Elkins in this one as well. I would have had him even bigger before the Minner versus Rosa fight because Minner's win over TJ Laramie, it just looked like all of his wins on the regional circuit. He, like, comes out like the Tasmanian devil. He snatches a guillotine in a minute. And, like, I mean, you pointed out, like, he's got 22 submissions, but, like, 15 of them are in the first round, and about 10 of those are first round guillotines in, like, a minute. It just looked like like all the Minner fights that I had seen on like, grainy video. The Rosa fight was a little more concerning because even though he couldn't get the quick finish, he was still there in the third round and was not a completely spent force. That makes me feel a little more concerned because you said it, Elkins has made cardio and really just general durability his calling card for a very long career at this point, but that's gotta drop off at some point, and it had shown signs of dropping off as he dropped 4 in a row, even if they were to much more proven opposition than Minner. But yeah, I still think this is a bad matchup for Minner. The things that he does well do not match up with what Darren Elkins still does well at this point in his career. And I'm with you. I could see Minner doing things that worked for him in Nebraska, but aren't going to work in Las Vegas. Things like, pulling guard or just allowing a takedown, jumping guard with a guillotine. If he ends up underneath Darren Elkins on purpose, he's going to regret it for at least the rest of that round, assuming he makes it there. I'm with you. I have Elkins by decision in this one in what is, according to current odds, still a slight upset. Third from the top at UFC on ESPN 27, on a card full of fighters choosing to test their fortunes in a lower weight class, here is the one example of a fighter moving up in weight, as Kyler Phillips will welcome Raulian Paiva up to the bantamweight division. Phillips, the 26-year-old, is 9-1 overall. He is a sterling 3-0 since joining the UFC. He appeared on the first season of Dana White's Contender Series, was not immediately signed, but made his way here in 2020 and has looked fantastic ever since. He's taking on Paiva. The 25-year-old Brazilian is 20-3 overall. He is 2-2 since joining the UFC out of the first season of Dana White's Contender Series Brazil. He dropped his first 2 fights in the octagon against 2 very solid fighters in Kai Kara France and Rogerio Bontorin. Wisely, the UFC gave him a third chance because he has bounced back with 2 straight wins over Mark De La Rosa and most recently last July, Jalga Zhumagulov, whom he beat via unanimous decision at UFC 251. Odds on this one do favor Phillips to spoil the bantamweight debut of the Brazilian. He is minus 275. You can get Paiva around plus 230 as the underdog. Keith, how do you like this one playing out? And regardless of who you see winning, do you think bantamweight is the place for Paiva?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's going to lose some of the, well, we'll start with him. He's going to lose some of his physical advantage. Like when you think about him at flyweight, he was a huge guy for flyweight. But when you start missing weight, and what didn't he miss the last one by like 4 pounds? Like it wasn't even close. It was one of those ones like I think he like gave up on the weight cut. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to benefit his career moving up. It probably won't. But we said that about like John Lineker, and it did. So maybe it will. So yeah, so. One of his biggest tools is length, so he won't really have that much anymore. But he still has, he has a stalking style, and not having a weight cut, maybe that helps. Like he wants to come forward with good output. If you're not completely drained, maybe his output maybe be even better than we've seen at flyweight, which has been really good. Works behind a solid jab, powerful right hand. He does drop his hands a little bit, but to make up for it, he has good head movement. He bounces his head off the center line really well. A lot of kicks, good body kicks, good calf kicks. Can clinch fight well. Solid takedown fits. You don't see much offensive wrestling. Occasionally you'll see him get a takedown. A lot of that he's been matched up against the better wrestlers, and there's some really good wrestlers at flyweight. But overall, he's a good addition. Like he's a good division to division. I've always liked Paiva. Let me say, I would like him at flyweight. Like I would like him to make flyweight and stay at 125. Like I still think that'd be ultimately better for him. But at this point, it's a lost cause. Now move over to Phillips. Very well-rounded, athletic guy, elusive. He's light on his feet. Great movement, great head movement. He's fast, hard leg kicks. He really, really steps into his shots when he throws them. He loves his athletic attacks, flying stuff, flying knees, spinning attacks. He is well-rounded, though. Good timing on his takedowns, entries with body locks, entries on your hips. Good at just, even if he doesn't take you down, causing a scramble and winning the scramble. When he's on top, he's looking to advance to position and look for submission. I wasn't completely sold on Kyler Phillips. I liked him as a prospect, but I wasn't sold as like, a lot of people think he was an elite prospect and one of the best guys, or maybe like the bantamweight prospect moving forward. I wasn't sold until he beat Song Yadong. Like that to me is a quality. And it was a very close fight, but in a young career to beat a guy like Song Yadong, that opened my eyes. And now I feel much better about moving forward. And with that, I'm going to take him to win this fight. Both guys are really good. But until I see Paiva moving up at bantamweight, seeing what he's going to look like, he might just be outpowered. And Phillips is bigger than him. Phillips is probably, even though Paiva's moving up, Phillips might be a little faster fighter. I mean, I don't see many people having a speed advantage on Phillips. Paiva's so tough that I don't think Phillips will finish him. But give me Phillips to pick him apart from range. Also add in maybe 1 or 2 takedowns and win a decision.
Awesome. I like the way you kind of assessed Phillips on his way into the UFC, because he is a guy that when I saw him fight, I was more like, I really hope this guy turns out to be really good because I want to see more of this.
Because he's fun.
He's super fun. He strikes me as a guy who, like God gave him the same like box of Legos that Dominic Cruz or TJ Dillashaw have, just a very athletic, quick twitch guy who's light on his feet and is able to seamlessly blend striking into wrestling. And Phillips just chose to build something else with those Legos.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Remember when John Jones first came to the UFC and he was doing all this crazy stuff and it was still like, that crazy stuff works only to a certain level?
Yeah.
And then it just kept working.
It kept working.
It never stopped. It wasn't until maybe he beat Brandon Vera that people were like, oh shit, like this guy really is the next big thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. When he came in and like he had like basically spinning back elbows, lateral drops, and like really long, like reaching kicks. Like,
yeah.
How are you beating everybody? And like, I've never even seen you like just actually set up and box
That's
before,
right.
like, or I've never seen you shoot a conventional takedown, but you like slam Stephan Bonner all over the cage, No, yeah. It's the same thing. And Phillips has got a little bit of that. Like he strikes me as a guy that he could emulate the Cruz or Dillashaw style very well if he wanted to, but instead he chooses to throw a lot more kicks than either of them. He likes to spice it up with flying attacks. I don't know if he'll keep doing that as he moves into stiffer competition, but I'm here for it for as long as he wants to do it. The problem is, like, he is a very capable wrestler, and he disguises his takedowns well in the other stuff he's doing, and that's going to be bad news for Paiva, I think, because that is a bit of a weakness for him. He has the curse of kind of like the lengthy, long-legged guy, or at least he did at flyweight. That'll be a nice safety valve for Phillips in the event that the striking isn't going the way he wants it to. But I expect him to get the better of the striking as well. I am pretty high on Phillips as a prospect here and as the favorite in this fight. I think that line might have a little to do with, the jury being out on what Paiva will look like at 135. Like, is he just going to be the guy that failed to make weight at 125, with more water in him, or is his body actually going to look different? But either way, I do have Phillips in this one, and I have him by decision as well. That brings us to the co-main event, and yet one more example of a fighter coming back after a good while away. It is Aspen Ladd versus Macy Chiasson. Ladd, the 26-year-old Californian, is 9-1 overall. She's 4-1 in the UFC. Has not fought since December 2019 when she appeared at UFC on ESPN Overeem versus Rosenstrike and knocked out Yana Kunitskaya in the third round. That allowed her to bounce back from the definitely strange and arguably controversial first loss of her career when she was knocked down by Jermaine Durandamy, just floored in seconds, and the fight was waved off. It goes down as a 16-second TKO for Durandamy. Ladd protested profusely. Ladd appealed the decision to, I believe it was California, the California State Athletic Commission. The ruling of the referee was upheld, and it stays as an L on her record. She'll be taking on Chiasson, the winner of. She was the winner of Tough 28, wasn't she? Yeah, she was.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, the winner of the featherweight season of Tough 28 that has yielded absolutely zero featherweights for the UFC is 29 years old, from Louisiana, fighting out of Dallas's Fortis MMA. She is 7-1 overall. She is 5-1 in the UFC. She's on a 2-fight winning streak, having taken a unanimous decision over Marion Renault back in March, and then all the way back last February beat Shanna Young by unanimous decision as well, allowing her to come back from the first loss of her career, which was a unanimous decision to Lena Landsberg all the way back in September of 2019. Despite the more recent loss and the long layoff, Ladd is the moderate favorite here. She is minus 190, where you can get Chiasson at plus 165 as the underdog. Keith, a bonus question, since we're up to the co-main event, it's probably worth discussing the implications of this fight a little more. One, assuming the winner of this fight, it's an uncontroversial win, like they definitely won. How close do you think they are to a bantamweight title shot? And if either of these women said, I'm willing to fight Amanda Nunes at featherweight, would they have that fight immediately if they wanted it?
I'll start with the second question. Yes. Second question, yeah. I mean, because who else is there? There's nobody else at 145. Unless the UFC just completely gets rid of the division altogether, where they just say, okay, we're retiring the division. Amanda, you're the final champion, which I still think is probably the most likely case, which is going to happen. I mean, who else is there to her to fight? Danielle Wolf.
Yeah.
The
vacant title would be contested between a bunch of people that she completely embarrassed.
Yeah, imagine if Amanda Nunes got rid of the division, got rid of the title. They actually did like a tournament, like Norma Dumont, and yeah. But I guess you'd have to bring back those featherweights from Tough 28. Bring back Leah Letson and
Bia Malecki.
Yeah, I think Patty Canizad, she's like a bantamweight now, or she?
Yeah, they're all either bantamweight or they didn't pan out.
But you're forgetting about one. One is not only a bantamweight. I mean, she didn't go down to bantamweight. She went up to lightweight. Larissa Pacheco is now a lightweight for the PFL, and she's a PFL finalist, and she's in the tournament again.
She's basically an article of clothing for Kayla Harrison at this point. Kayla Harrison just puts on Larissa Pacheco like a hat every couple months.
Yeah, but will she have like 2 or 3 wins over already? Yeah. She's probably got to face her in the finals again. But back to this event. The first question was, how far would they be away from a title fight? Not far at all. Like there's Juliana Pena, and then it's like, oh yeah, she beat everybody else. So, Aspen Ledd's a little higher in the division. They've kind of pushed her a little more. She's already fought in the main event of the UFC, so I think if she wins, she'd get the push a little quicker than Macy Chiasson. I've always thought Macy Chiasson should have been better staying at featherweight. We've talked about this in the past, but just her physical tools and
she's huge.
She's a big woman.
Yeah.
So Aspen Ledd, she's returning from an ACL tear. Like that's very concerning. ACL, and I think it was like MCL. Like she really did up her knee bad. She's only 26, so I have a lot more confidence in her recovery than if she was older. But like they didn't give her an easy bounce back fight. They throw her right in the co-main event against Macy Chiasson, who's a physically freak herself. Now, Ladd is known. I mean, you look at her; she's ripped. She got like ab muscles and big shoulders, and she's just very physically strong. And as we said, she's just turned 26. She might only be reaching her power now. Like this is the ages 26, 27, 28 when you start getting it. Her striking is very raw. It's a little stiff. Her hand speed, I'd say, needs to improve. She's a little slow. She doesn't move her head. But to her credit, she has limited skills on the feet, but she does as well as she possibly can at this point of her career with it. Like I give people credit. Like Darren Elkins made a career of it. Like he uses it, affected it enough. She kind of does the same thing. Like she stays tight. She understands that she needs to stay tight, but she wants to work. She wants to close the distance, get in the clinch. She's strong in the clinch, good clinch takedowns, great top pressure. And if Aspen Ledd gets on top, she has insane. Like she has like some of the funnest ground and pound you ever see. Like when she gets on you, she starts making those weird noises, and she has like it's like a horror movie. Like she gets like flashbacks of like a cheating boyfriend that she's murdering or something. Like it's did I go too far? Is that too far? But
no, I think that's entirely appropriate.
Like she's thinking about something like that. Or she's thinking about like some kid in kindergarten there. They called her ugly or something. I don't know. She goes to a scary place.
I was thinking of that actually while watching tape on her. I was like, who has scarier ground and pound than this in like any of the women's divisions? And I was like, Cyborg and Nunes, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Like that. Seriously, she's vicious.
Yeah. Now, Maycee Chiasson, you mentioned she's a huge bantamweight. Like I said, she has actually be more intriguing in the PFL of all things. Like she actually could comfortably make lightweight and fill out the division well. But she's not fighting in the PFL. So back to this. Big reach, long arms and legs, good power. I give her credit for her chin, but I haven't seen her really hurt a lot. Which is funny because since she has a lot of defensive holes, she walks through punches, which is never a good sign. She doesn't really move her head. In her fight against Shayna Young, not really known as a big talent in the UFC, Shayna Young was actually having success striking with her in the first round, and she's very hittable. But also the way she fights, I said it last time, she reminds me of like a female version of Tim Means. Even though she's really big, she doesn't want to stay on the outside. She actually wants to be inside where she uses her knees. She likes to get in the clinch and beat you up. She's strong in the clinch, dirty boxing, elbows in close, knees are really, really brutal. And she also likes to just lean on you. I said this last time. She wants to just drape on you and carry her weight. She knows she's the bigger girl. But even though she wants to get inside and beat her up, like it's not always a good thing for her because she has weak takedown defense. I mean, we've seen it in a lot of her fights. Lena Landsberg was taking her down, gassed her out. Mary Renault, to her credit, Mary Renault took her down. We talked about in the recap, though, what I liked about Maycee Chiasson in the past, she would have probably lost that fight. She wouldn't have got up. She worked her way back up to Mary Renault and won later rounds with her clinching, which I like. And this is a fun fight. It's going to be a clinch battle. Like that's where it's going to be. If Maycee Chiasson had better takedown defense, I would take her because of the physical tool she has, but she doesn't. Like I expect Aspen Ladd to get her down. If Aspen Ladd gets you down, she ends the fight. Like she's that good on the ground. I actually think that's what's going to happen. I think Aspen Ladd's going to get maybe 1 or 2 takedowns. I think she's going to slowly advance position, get those openings, maybe get a position where he gets back and just pounds her out. Give me Aspen Ladd. I'll take her by. I see she works her over for a while, and then finally the third round is when she gets the opportunity to just finish it. She finishes it in the third round. Aspen Ladd by third round TKO, ground and pound.
I am 100% on your same track here. The things that Chiasson does well just don't match up well for her. With more specifically, her weaknesses do not match up well with Ladd's strengths, and by calling the third round TKO, that plays into the other part, man. Like win or lose, her Chiasson's gas tank has been a serious problem for her. I think it was only as good as it looked in the Renault fight because Renault fights at such a deliberate pace to kind of guard her own gas tank. Someone who puts it on her, I think, will have her on empty a lot quicker. And assuming Ladd is not compromised by the knee injuries and the rehab from that, she is someone who will absolutely put it on her. She's going to make her work. And even if she doesn't get the takedown so easily early on, like hopefully she will be a little more cautious in her entries early on, because one thing that Chiasson can do that Ladd has clearly shown herself susceptible to is she can run into a really heavy punch, and this can end just like the Durandamy fight. But I'm not picking that to happen. I'm with you. I think we'll probably have very even fight in the early going. Probably be a great first round, but Ladd will build from strength to strength as Chiasson starts to fade. And I have Ladd by third round TKO as well, probably on the ground. And maybe this is the fight that will send Chiasson up to 145 for good. Who knows? But either way, it'll be good to have Aspen Ladd back. With that, we come to the main event of UFC on ESPN, Sandhagen versus Dillashaw. It is a bantamweight 5-round affair between the rising contender and the former champ coming back from 2.5 years of exile. Sandhagen, the 29-year-old fighting out of Colorado, is 14-2 overall. He's 7-1 in the UFC. He is on a 2-fight winning streak since his first UFC loss to Aljamain Sterling last June. He came back and knocked out Marlon Moraes in October with a spinning wheel kick, and then put away Frankie Edgar with an absolute knockout for the ages with a flying knee in just 28 seconds at UFC Fight Night Overeem versus Volkov. He'll be taking on Dillashaw. The 35-year-old Californian is 16-4 overall. He's 12-4 in the UFC since coming in second on the Ultimate Fighter Season 14. He, of course, has not fought since January of 2019 when he was knocked out in 32 seconds by Henry Cejudo in a failed attempt to add Cejudo's flyweight belt to his own bantamweight hardware. Shortly after that, he received the 2-year suspension from USADA, retroactive to January of 2019. He was eligible to fight this January. We are now seeing him in this main event. And for the first time in quite a while, Dillashaw will be the betting underdog. Sandhagen is minus 190 right now, Dillashaw plus 165. Keith, whenever an elite fighter has a drug test failure, a bust for PEDs, obviously it calls into question not just what they will look like when they come back, but for a lot of them, it calls their prior achievements into question. And obviously it depends on how the individual fan or media member, views PEDs. It also kind of depends on the fighter, like Anderson Silva, an all-time great, started getting busted for PEDs very late in his career. There are some fans who, they believe that taints everything he's ever done. There are others who are like, no, the prime Anderson Silva is still mine, and he just did some, some dishonest things to try to keep things going in his 40s. I'm not weighing in either way on that, but in terms of that dynamic, Dillashaw's about as bad as it gets because he was in his absolute prime. He had the worst kind of drug bust because EPO is something that you have to purposely do on a regular basis. It's not something that accidentally ends up in your tub of whey protein. Like it's an unquestionably intentional form of cheating. And it is something that plays directly into what made him go. What made him go was just relentless pace and weaponized cardio. So a lot of fans, and plenty of people whose opinions I respect are like, okay, there's a good chance that EPO was TJ Dillashaw's secret sauce all along. I'm going to ask you for your opinion here. Like, can Dillashaw, or does he even need to redeem his achievements that are already on the shelf, or can he tarnish them even worse depending on how he looks from here on out? But
yeah, that's a tough question, man. I'll say this: some people, no matter what, he'll never redeem himself to. Like there's, I don't know, 20% MMA fans, but I don't know the exact number, but there's a certain percentage of MMA fans that no matter what TJ Dillashaw, he could win this fight, win 3 more fights, win the title, defend the title 5 times, move up to featherweight, win the title, then move up to lightweight, win that title. Like he'd be the first ever 3 division champion. Whatever, and nothing he'll do make up for it. So be it. But if he wins on Saturday and the test results come back and he's clean, and he's going to redeem himself to a lot of people. But on the same sense, we're taking out those, whatever we said, 10%, 20% of guys that will never be redeemed. There'll be more if he loses, and he loses bad and he's not competitive. There'll be more people jumping into that field that, like, he was never that good. He needed EPO. So he's got so much pressure on him, his legacy, It's funny because, and I understand the argument you're saying about the EPO, like that, and I'm not some, I know you probably, by the looking at me, you think I would be some expert on performance enhancing drugs, but believe it or not, I'm not. I don't think I even heard of EPO before TJ Dillashaw that I could think of. I know that's the one they said Lance Armstrong did. But
it's more of a thing for endurance athletes. It causes your body to produce more red blood cells. It gives you more endurance. Yep.
Yeah, it's more not the power. It's more of be able to go longer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But so I understand it's a very rare one. It's not common. It's not something that gets caught in tainted supplements and stuff. Which so many fighters. There's fighters that have had tainted supplements, proven that it was tainted supplements, and there's still people that call them cheaters today.
Mm-hmm.
Yoel Romero is an example. There's a bunch of them, but I'll say this: I don't know if I've ever seen anybody get a reaction like TJ Dillashaw did for any of those, not counting, stick and ball spots. I'm talking about MMA. If any fighter has got a bigger negative reaction than TJ Dillashaw, I mean, maybe John Jones, but there's still a big section of people. I'm one of them that says John Jones is the greatest fighter of all time. I don't know and I think what happened with TJ was like this perfect storm too. It was after going down to flyweight, which, when you lose, a lot of people kick you when you're down. He lost to Henry Cejudo, and then arguing about the ref and the early stoppage and kind of making a big deal about that. So it was just a wrong time. Like, he started becoming a villain and a crybaby and a sore loser, and then this came in at the same time. So I think that might be why his legacy has taken. Like, do you think about someone like Josh Barnett? Josh Barnett has tested positive like 172 times.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, he's tested positive like 5 times since he signed with Bellator. When he was 42.
Mm-hmm.
But when you take Josh Barnett, like, not many people talk about his, performance in drug positive tests.
No, he's so associated with it that you either take him with it, or nobody tries to excuse it. You either say, I don't care, he's still great, or, you care.
I think about guys like Vitor Belfort, Alistair Overeem, like guys, that was accused of it, that tested positive. They don't carry the same stigma that TJ, for some reason, TJ Dillashaw carries the stigma. And in fairness, I know he did, first he had his excuses, but then he came clean. And then what I do respect about it, and it might be simply that you can't lie about this, but that he has come out and said, yeah, I cheated. I wanted to be the best, and I cheated. It's funny because usually when you do that, you get a little bit of grace. I think of Andy Pettitte in baseball. Mm-hmm. As a Red Sox fan, I don't like that he got a lot of grace, but he got a lot more grace than other players did by saying, like, yeah, I cheated.
It's almost refreshing.
Yeah, I don't know why TJ Dillashaw doesn't. I know he got some slack with the whole leaving Team Alpha Male, the Conor McGregor, he's a snake, he's sneak behind your back thing, and I don't know. I tend to, the people that people knock down, I tend to naturally gravitate towards those people and try to lift them up. I kind of feel that way with TJ. Like, I forgive him. Like, I've already moved on. He's been punished. He served his time.
For the most part, I'm with you, but I definitely understand where the backlash came from. You mentioned the whole things around the Cejudo fight. Well, we just talked about Maycee Barber and the danger of like trying to call your own shot. Like, when he was just saying, Dana White's giving me $500,000 to go close that division down.
Yeah.
Unless you were already like a big TJ Dillashaw fan or a personal friend of his, 99% chance you wanted to be like, oh, how funny would it be if he just gets his ass handed to him?
And most people thought it was going to happen. Most people thought he was going to win.
Oh, yeah.
At that time.
I fully expected him to win.
Hindsight's 2020, but most people picked him to beat Henry Cejudo.
Like, I was far more concerned that he wouldn't make the weight than that he would lose the fight. So once he made the weight, I was like, oh, man, Cejudo's in trouble. 30 or 2 seconds later, I was dead wrong. But there were plenty of people that were happy to see kind of, the fall of the arrogant guy who thought he had this. I really think it does start with, you got to do 2 things. Got to never test positive again, and you got to start winning fights. Because if he stays clean, but he starts losing, then it's like, okay, clearly there's the EPO and the post EPO era for this guy. Kind of like when, they outlawed TRT in like 2014, and like Henderson and Belfort and all those guys just fell off a cliff. That'll be the narrative of Dillashaw's career, and that would certainly tarnish it.
I don't think it's fair, though. And why I'm saying that is he's 35 now. Like, he might have been at this fall off anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm sure we'll get to the prediction, but
nope, that's where I'm going next, dude. He's 35 in a division that normally is not kind to the elderly.
Yeah. So he might have, if he never tested positive for EPO, he might have been losing to Cory Sandhagen anyways at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Or worse, Pedro Munoz. So guys lower down the scale, Sean O'Malley. Like, he might have been in that position at this point if he's been fighting the last 2.5 years. He might have been in a 3-fight losing streak. Who knows? Like, at that age, would that shocked you if he got knocked out 3 fights in a row?
No,
at 35.
It's interesting to think of what probably would have happened if Dillashaw had not gotten busted, because probably the next fight was going to be a Cejudo rematch at bantamweight, because Cejudo was like, I want to go be a double champ. And just think of the fights that we kind of missed out on. Like, maybe we would have seen him fight Jose Aldo, Peter Yan, Frankie Edgar, who is it that just choked out Sandhagen? Aljamain Sterling. Just all these fights we could have seen that we kind of missed out on, because Dillashaw couldn't even cheat right. Let's talk about this actual fight a little bit. We've now given about 11 minutes of love to TJ Dillashaw. Last time TJ Dillashaw fought in the octagon. Let's see. What has Sandhagen done since then? He's fought 4 times, 5 times since then.
Wow.
He fought on the Cejudo versus Dillashaw card.
Okay.
So if you count that, he is 5-1 since the last time we saw Dillashaw in the octagon. He's beaten Mario Batista, John Lineker, Rafael Assunção, Marlon Moraes, and Frankie Edgar, and he's lost to Aljamain Sterling. Like, dude, he's essentially coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
In the time that Dillashaw's been gone. And I had not pegged him for a title contender. Even up to like when he beat Assunção and before the Sterling fight, I was like, this is a really exciting guy to watch that I hope sticks around, but kind of hanging around the lower reaches of the top 10 is his ceiling. That's proven not to be the case. He's in the picture. I mean, were you high on Sandhagen from early on?
I was pumping the brakes a little bit on him. I liked him as a prospect, but not to this level. No way. Like, a lot of people say I didn't think I did, and there's a lot of people out there that liked him this high. I remember my buddy Derek Bowe, he was really high on him. I was not to this level.
Any other big picture stuff we want to talk about before I kick it to you for analysis of the fight?
This is the other thing. If TJ Dillashaw wins, that I was thinking about today, which, I mean, it's already a fantastic division. It really is. I mean, when you figure you have the controversy with Sterling and Yan, obviously TJ's back. If he wins or is extremely competitive, so you say it's like a split decision or something like that, where he looked like, all right, this is TJ Dillashaw. Adding Cory Sandhagen, you got legends like, at the end of his career with Jose Aldo, Frankie Edgar, like, there's names. You got prospects like Sean O'Malley, like top prospects. If TJ wins, is there any way that can kind of get Cejudo starting to think again?
I think that actually, if Dillashaw is ever champ again, that absolutely will.
Yeah.
But even if he starts winning again, maybe that would get Cejudo to start making some noise.
Yeah, it's crazy sound that you just said how great the division is. Henry Cejudo is still probably the most marketable guy in the division.
It's possible.
With this whole Triple C kind of, I love the gimmick because I don't take it serious. Like, I'm not one of these idiots who realize that, like, he's joking. It's like it's a gimmick. He's not taking him serious. He's doing satire. It's funny.
No, it completely is. Like,
it's people who out there actually believe this. Like, are you really that dumb? Like, no, he doesn't really want to fight Valentina Shevchenko. He's joking.
Yep, he's joking, dude. He's wearing a Burger King crown while he does.
Right.
Like,
yeah, he's doing it on purpose. He's having fun.
Yeah, like, I mean, he's to fighting what, like, the schmo is to journalism. Like, it's a goofy gimmick. If it annoys you, that's fine. That's a matter of taste. But it's all it's doing is it's giving him an in and concealing the fact that he actually does good work.
Yeah, I'm not annoyed by it. I find him funny.
I love the schmo.
Yeah, I find both those guys funny.
Yeah, Yeah, I like Cejudo just fine. I wish he
Yeah.
were still around. The division was a more interesting place with him in it.
Yeah. Yeah. He's been quietly. Like he's got like maybe this like kind of stuff. Even like when he's just talking. I don't know.
Yeah.
I want Cejudo back. Anyways, sorry. On to this fight.
Yeah, onto this fight. I mean, it's a big question, but who you got and how?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of question marks. I mean, that's what we were talking about. As you mentioned, TJ Dillashaw being off for 2.5 years, so we really don't know what he's gonna be. But I'm just judging him by what I last saw of him. He's got legendary footwork. I mean, it's right up there with Cory Sandhagen, with Dominic Cruz, another one of his rivals. Constantly switches stances, constantly looking for different looks, different angles. He's got good vision. That's because he leads with his chin. If you see TJ, he drops his head and doesn't want to lead. He's looking with his leading. You need to have elite head movement, which he does. I shouldn't say elite because he's been caught a lot, but good head movement to do that. But he's got tight hands. His everything's boxing is in close quarter battling. Very, very good power for the division. You said EPO helps with cardio. I don't know if it helps with power at all, but TJ has big power for the division. I mean, he's put a lot of people either out. I mean, look at Cody Garbrandt, which yes, I understand the wins have not aged well, but at that time, especially the very first one when Garbrandt was the champion coming off of the Dominic Cruz destruction, but he's got really good power for the division. He has that dipping high kick, the one we talked about Randy Costa does. Like TJ, I keep saying Robert Whitaker, that's one of his moves. This is TJ Dillashaw move. Like Robert Whitaker's been fighting, so I think about him. But that's a TJ Dillashaw special where he throws a combination, throws something where he's finishing leaning to his left, so he can. And while he's going down on the left in the combination, he's throwing the right high kick, or because he switched in, he can do it on both sides. Great wrestler. I mean, he's a great wrestler who actually doesn't use his wrestling enough. He needs to wrestle even more. It's actually probably why he lost the Dominic Cruz fight, because Cruz was adding in takedowns and he wasn't. But good control, good scrambles too. And if you take him down, it's very, very hard to hold down TJ Dillashaw. Again, bear with me. I'm talking about 2.5 years ago, TJ Dillashaw. I'm assuming he's the same guy. Until I've seen him otherwise, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Now, move on to Cory Sandhagen. Obviously, the first thing I think of when you see Cory Sandhagen when he steps in, like how long and lengthy he is. He's a huge guy. He's going to be taller than TJ. I didn't do this, but I'm assuming he's got a reach advantage. He's so fluid. He's got great movement. He does also switch stances. He can fight out of both stances. It's funny because they talk about him as Dominic Cruz, and I've talked about it in the past, and I think that's a lazy comparison. He actually reminds me more of Max Holloway with his striking. Where Cruz is moving and he's throwing stuff without like knowing what he's doing. Well, he switches and sets things up with his switches and his movement. He's used a lot of feints to kind of keep you guessing. He tends to just touch. I like that he targets the body. I like that when he gets in close, he's looking. He understands how tall he is. He's looking for knees in close. If he stays outside of distance, calf kicks for days. And I love that suddenly, as he's risen to the higher level he's gone, suddenly his power has kind of come with him. Like suddenly he has this. I mean, he's putting Marlon Moraes. I mean, he hurt him a couple times, then put him out, and then obviously, as you mentioned, the knockout of the year candidate and the flying knee knockout of it's one of those ones that's like, wow, what an amazing knockout of Frankie Edgar, but also like, oh man, did I just watch Frankie Edgar get knocked out bad? He's a solid wrestler, but he's not TJ Dillashaw's level of wrestling. TJ Dillashaw is a better wrestler, but he's good at scrambles, creating scrambles. And I think he's a little overconfident in his grappling. We've talked about this in the past. If you take him down, he'll just get up. In the one loss he has in the UFC, he did that against Aljamain Sterling, and Aljamain Sterling made him pay for it. Jumped on his back, submitted him. And also, we've seen him go deep into fights with cardio. Like, he hasn't slowed down. So, who do I think is going to win? Well, there's a lot of question marks that I don't have answers for. I'm worried about TJ's chin. I mean, you think about he was hurt in the first fight against Garbrandt. He was hurt bad in that fight. He followed up the second fight. He was dropped in the second fight, I think once or twice. Everyone always remembers him getting the knockout. He was also hurt in that second fight too. Mm-hmm. And then obviously the Henry Cejudo knockout. You have a 2.5 year layoff. What he's been doing for that last 2.5 years? How has he been looking? He's 35 years old, which obviously you get to a point where you just fall off a cliff at a certain age, when, especially in the lower weight classes. Going even back to when he went down to 125 and he like drained his body, did that do anything? Did it have any lasting effects? Like, I don't know enough about weight cutting, but you've heard coaches and them saying about how, it can really have a negative health effect moving forward. And then the last question, which I've been tiptoeing away from, and even when we were talking about, like, what effect was the EPO? Did he need the EPO? I tend to give him the benefit of the doubt that he didn't, but he very well may have. So I don't sure. So I don't have the answers, but I do know Cory Sandhagen is really good, and he looked amazing lately. And I think it'd be really wise for Dillashaw to turn this into a wrestling match as much as possible. I don't think he will. I don't think he will, and I don't think he can at this point in his career. If he has a cardio to be able to go, especially without the EPO, go back to that, to have a very heavy grappling matchup. I also like Sandhagen's footwork to make him a hard target to really time. I think he lands some power shots, and I think he lands a big shot, and I think he's going to put TJ out. So give me Sandhagen, and give me Sandhagen by third round knockout, landing a big shot, and ruining the return of TJ Dillashaw.
Awesome. I'm glad. Like, it always makes me feel good when like you like spot something that stood out to me. The best head-to-head like skill matchup between these two for Dillashaw is his offensive wrestling against Sandhagen's defensive wrestling. Like, as good a wrestler as Sandhagen is, and he's especially a good wrestler for a guy with such long legs, like they just it tends to be a liability. He's a good offensive wrestler. He's fantastic in scrambles, where if he's getting wrestled, he is good at least making the fight end up in a position that is not as disadvantageous to him. But as a pure defensive wrestler, that's still probably his greatest liability. But I'm with you. I don't know whether Dillashaw will try to leverage that advantage. I don't know if he will be able to, if he does try. And the thing is that if he dawdles, if he's like, what, I'll just, I'll kickbox with this guy and, see what he's got, and I'll turn to my wrestling if I need to, he might not get the chance to correct that mistake. Sandhagen has a kind of just, it can be lights out power. I mean, just ask Frankie Edgar, or show Edgar the tape and then ask him, since I'm sure he doesn't remember it. But also has just fight changing power. Like, oh, I don't like these punches I'm getting, and I need to think of something else. Like, Sandhagen has that. Like, I'm with you. I don't think it'll be over quickly, but it could be over quickly. I could see Sandhagen just tagging Dillashaw hard in the first couple of exchanges, and this thing is over quickly. If Dillashaw's chin has even continued the decline that it would have naturally been on from his last couple of fights and the 2.5 years, this could be over quickly. If it's any worse, it could be over quickly. But I think this is going to be a showcase for Cory Sandhagen. It's going to be a bad look for TJ Dillashaw, who the UFC will give him every chance to redeem himself. If he does get knocked out in the second round, which by the way is what I'm picking, and I'll even say I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of the ones where Dillashaw needs help up at the end of the first, and everybody's like, ooh, even if that happens, you can tell that like the UFC wants Dillashaw to do well. Like he was saying while he was away, the UFC needs me. And I'm not sure he's wrong. Even if he's a polarizing figure and everybody just hates his guts and wants to see him lose and fail, that's eyeballs. So we'll see more of TJ Dillashaw. We'll definitely see more of Cory Sandhagen, who may stamp his own, passport to a title shot with this. But give me Cory Sandhagen by some kind of nasty knockout in the second round in a big moment for him.
Ben, let me ask you this before we end the show. So, do you think this was the right matchup for TJ's return? You think they should have gave him Sandhagen?
I was surprised they gave him a test as tough as Sandhagen.
Yeah, I don't think it was the right move either. He probably demanded it. I bet you it was more on him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that he could have fought like a borderline top 10 guy, but Dillashaw, for better or for worse, that is not fake arrogance on him. Like, I believe that I believe TJ Dillashaw right now thinks he can beat anyone at bantamweight, and he just wants the quickest possible route to prove it.
Yeah, I agree. That's
So
probably exactly what happened.
Like, and I'm not.
You know, we do this when we do our matchmaking. Like, who would I have made if nobody had to say I'm the ultimate boss? I probably would have given Frankie Edgar. You know, two big names. They could have headlined a fight night. You know, and Edgar's still a good enough test that it isn't a complete squash match, but one that would feel like you'd favor TJ, and you know, that's what I would have done. I do have a little boxing matchmaking in me when I want somebody to get a win.
I mean, all I would have really wanted in his return matchup is someone who also is on the older end of their career and didn't have the ability to just flatline him with one shot. I would have been fine with the Dominic Cruz rematch. Honestly, that would have been fine with me.
Yeah. I don't actually. That's a good storyline too. They'd sell the shit out of that too.
Those two dudes do not like each other, and they're both not afraid to talk. Cruz, I mean, I don't know if he's entitled.
Yeah, if TJ loses and doesn't get like absolutely destroyed, that's probably the match next.
Wouldn't be bad.
I was there in Boston for their first fight. I actually scored it for TJ, but
quite a few people did. Todd Martin, the great granddad of Sherdog op-ed writers, wrote a thing about Dillashaw on Monday, and he pointed out that a lot of the guy's misfortunes are of his own making, but there are some things that if they had broken just a little differently, like he could have an even better legacy in the division than he does right now. Like, a lot of people thought he won the Cruz fight. He managed to catch John Dodson on the one night John Dodson decided to pull the trigger. Like, if he got any of the other 90, if he got any of the other 9 times out of 10 John Dodson, Dillashaw wins an easy decision. You know,
he was the champion when DJ was a champion. Didn't want to move up. Like, that could have made his legacy, or it could have ruined it too. But those are good points. Those are. So the reason why the Cruz fight was extremely close, and I have no problem with anybody giving for Cruz. But my thing is, I felt like there was a little bit of that he wasn't supposed to win. Oh, it's a close round. He must have won it. I always tell people, like, the people who argue that, and we're going way down this rabbit hole here, but the people who argue that, like, Alexander Gustafsson beat John Jones in the first fight, I always say rewatch that fight and show me 3 rounds that he won.
No, it's just the thing of they're doing so much better than you expect that they must be winning.
That's right.
Yeah, totally get it. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, this is a good one, man. This is a fantastic one. We'll be doing a recap. Make sure you guys check that out. If you guys like this, me and Ben don't do it. Some other people do. We probably should, but share this, guys. Like it. Tell your friends to watch it. Do all that stuff. Subscribe. Check out all the other stuff on the Sherdog. A lot of great interviews and stuff. So,
and make sure to check us out on the recap on the Sherdog YouTube page right after the main event. Any of these picks that we got wrong, you can let us have it. You can tell us who you think these people should fight next. Just weigh in with your thoughts and your questions. We love to chat with you guys.